Good morning, everybody. I'd like to call the November 22nd, 2022 Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County meeting to order. We will start with an invocation given by the Deacon Freddie Wolfark of the Progressive Civic League of Gifford. And the Pledge of Allegiance will be done myself, but first we'll start it off with a moment of silence for our first responders and members of the military and armed forces. Everybody please rise.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this precious moment, this precious opportunity to share love. We thank you for your guidance and divine grace, how we continue to look to you for all of our dilemma situations. So right now, we just lift you up, give you the honor, the praise, and the glory. We love you, and we love you, we love you, Lord. And you say in your word, how can you say you love me, whom you never seen, but yet hate your fellow man and brothers and sisters who you see every day? So the truth is not in us. So what you're telling us today is that we must love more. For the word love is conqueror of all things. Bless those officials that are in position to make a difference in the lives of the citizenry of the United States of America. Bless those families who are raising with bare minimal resources. Let us, during this time of Thanksgiving, be willing to share our resources to those who are less fortunate. But most of all, keep us unified in your spirit of love. In the mighty name of Jesus, we pray right now in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. In this week of thanks, let's give thanks to the greatest nation in the world, the United States of America, by reciting the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, well, it's that time again that every 2 years we get to do this. I was fortunate enough, along with Commissioner Moss, to do this 2 years ago, and now we've got a couple of special oath of office for Board of County Commissioners, and we'll start by asking the Honorable David C. Morgan to administer the oath of office for Commissioner Joseph Flesher.
You got a contingent.
Your Honor, I would like to be in company with not only myself, but with Joseph Flesher III, Joseph Flesher IV, Sarah, and my lovely wife, Elizabeth.
Outstanding. Outstanding. Are you ready to take the oath?
I am ready to take the oath. Please come in.
Please raise your right hand.
I can't do that.
Wrong side.
Forgot about that. Thank you, son.
Repeat after me. I, Joseph Flesher, do solemnly swear
I, Joseph Flesher, do solemnly swear
that I will support, protect, and defend
that I will support, protect, and defend
the Constitution and government of the United States and of the state of Florida,
the Constitution of the Government of Florida and the United States,
that I am duly qualified to hold office
that I am duly qualified to hold office
under the Constitution of the state,
under the Constitution of the state,
and that I will well and faithfully perform
and I will well and faithfully perform
the duties of County Commissioner,
the duties of County Commissioner,
of which I am now about to enter.
of which I am now about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you. Thank you, son. And you. Thank you. Thank you all.
Next, it's a special day. After 16 years, the District 4 County Commission seat has changed. It's under new leadership now. And I would ask the Honorable Judge Robert L. Pegg to come forward and administer the oath to our newest Commissioner, Darrell Lohr.
Are you ready to take the oath?
Yes, sir, I am.
Would you raise your right hand, please? I, Darrell Byron Lohr,
I, Darrell Byron Lohr,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, protect, and defend
that I will support, protect, and defend
the Constitution and government of the United States and the state of Florida,
the Constitution and government of the United States and of the state of Florida,
that I am duly qualified to hold office under the Constitution of the state,
and that I am duly qualified to hold office under the Constitution of the state,
and that I will well and faithfully perform the duties
and that I will well and faithfully perform the duties
of County Commissioner of Indian River County, Florida,
of County Commissioner of Indian River County, Florida,
on which I am about to enter.
on which I'm now about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Commissioner.
Thank you, Judge.
Before we move on, would Commissioner Fleischer, would you like to introduce your family?
Well, I thought I had already done that. I have many family members here today. Of course, I have my lovely bride, Rosemary. I have a few Joseph Fleischers here. I have Captain Joseph Fleischer II, the third, before us. He's in uniform. And then we have Joseph Edward Fleischer the fourth, who's in suit and tie. And he's being held by our lovely daughter-in-law, Sarah Fleischer. And I'm also very happy to
Turn his
see
mic on.
my brother and sister, Vince Messina and Susan Messina. Thank you for being here. And we have many friends, and I want to thank everybody for the support and the family guidance that made me endure. Well, one's leaving now. Made me endure. This is the fifth term that the Honorable Judge David Morgan has been able to swear me into office, and I'm very grateful, and thank you for taking the time to do that and to be with us today to ensure that this was seamless. Thank you.
Commissioner Lohr,
I
any words for us?
Vice Chair, I just want to thank everyone for being here today and the support along the way. Many of you know I've met with a lot of department heads in the last 4 weeks and ready to get to work.
All right, well, good. With that being said, I think we have a few celebrities in the audience. We have former Representative Ralph Popple. I see our former commissioner sitting in the booth in the back in the corner in the dark. Glad to have you here. And of course, we have Judge Pegg and Judge Morgan were here, and a few others. My wife is even here today. So I thank everybody for that. So we'll move on
The
to,
Mayor of Sebastian.
I'm sorry?
Uh,
There's Fred. Fred Jones is here.
Mayor of
Vice Mayor
Sebastian.
Sebastian and Fred Augustine, another local
You know the
celebrity sitting right
commissioner,
next to us.
a council member of Sebastian,
And Bob McPartland's up there,
Robert
thank you.
Portland.
Thank you.
There's another VIP.
Of course. Make sure he's legal up here.
Thank you, Judge.
It's on the pocket. Thank you, Your Honor.
Oh, shit. Yeah, that's my first statement. Thank you.
It's official. Thank you. All right. Well, again, thanks everybody for being here today. Again, it is a special day. So next we'll go on to 3B, the election of the Board of County Commission Chairman and Vice Chairman. And I will gladly turn this over to our County Attorney, Mr. Ryan Gold.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to,
Oh, can I open?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to nominate Joseph Ehrman as our next chairman.
Second.
Do I hear any other nominations? All right, do I hear a motion to close the floor?
Moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor of closing the floor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, seeing as there was only one nomination for Commissioner Ehrman to be the chair of the Indian River County Board of County Commissioners, we will take a vote on that nomination. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, well, let me be the first to congratulate Commissioner Ehrman on being elected as the chairman of the Indian River County Board of County Commissioners. All right, and would you like to say some words now?
Thanks. Yes, I would. Thank you. My fellow commissioners, thank you. It's an honor to be appointed by you as your chairman for the coming year. I hope to exceed your expectations as chairman for this year, but I will need your help. We have a lot of work to do, a lot of work ahead of us addressing such things as everything from growth management to visioning infrastructure, hiring a new county attorney, just the little things like that. So, so we have a
Yeah, attorney's office.
we have a lot to do, and
Surprise.
you'll
County administrator?
county administrator. What'd I say?
Attorney.
Oh, I'm sorry, county.
Dylan's
I'm
getting
sorry.
worried.
I'm sorry. I was
Dylan's
just
getting worried.
I was
That's
just
what
on
I
a
heard.
roll there. Well, maybe we need to.
Breathe again, Dylan, breathe.
I apologize for that. I'm sorry.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, I'm sorry.
I was on a
Subliminal
roll off
slip.
the top of my head. So I do that a lot. It's the age thing. So I apologize, Mr. Reingold, for that.
It's the will of the board.
Maybe you guys just want to swap or something or win positions or something. So we'll see. But, you know, you all know that I'm a sports kind of guy, and I can't do this by myself, so we'll need teamwork from all of us. I want you all to come to these meetings as individuals with your own ideas and your own thoughts, but in the end, I want us to come together as a team to do what's right for the citizens of Indian River County. I promise you that these meetings will remain civil and remain professional, but also I want to have a little fun once in a while too. And so, you know, when you're happy and up here, you do a good job at things, and I'm looking forward to having some fun along with doing some great work and great things. So for that, I would say thank you, and we'll move on, and let's get the
Mr.
job
Chair?
done. And now let's get us
Mr.
a vice
Chair?
chairman,
Mr.
Mr.
Chair.
Reingold.
Mr. Chair, point of order. Mr. Chair,
I'm sorry,
you forgot somebody in the audience.
I forgot what?
You forgot somebody in the audience. We're already starting to help you. There's a young lady in the audience.
Already downstairs. That's she's right
Okay,
there.
all right. I will make sure that you get it covered.
Believe me, she's the higher authority. You know, I've always tell people that you know, I'm indebted to the taxpayers of Indian River County, but there is one higher authority, and there she sits right there. So
Just want to make sure you're going to have a good night,
everybody-
you
I
know?
want everybody to know that.
Yeah.
So,
Fair.
so with that, I thank you, and let's proceed.
All right, I'm going to open up the floor for the nominations for vice chair of the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County.
Ms. Reingold, I'd nominate Commissioner Joseph Flesher.
Second.
Are there any other nominations?
Commissioner Adams, can I make one or no?
Well, no, yes, you can, because as I am the chair, it frees up the ability. That's part of the reason why we do this.
Commissioner Adams.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right. Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, is there a motion to close the floor?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, there's been a motion by Commissioner Adams, second by Commissioner Moss to close the floor. All in favor of that motion, say aye. All opposed? All right, the floor has been closed. The tradition is that when we have multiple nominations, we usually start with the first one. So I will tee off with the nomination for Commissioner Flesher. All those in favor of that nomination, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
All right, so that was Ehrman, Adams, and Moss as nay. Therefore, the motion failed 2-3. I will go to the second motion, which was the nomination by Commissioner Ehrman, seconded by Commissioner Adams, for Commissioner Adams to be chair. And on that one, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, that passes 3-2 with Commissioner Lohr and Commissioner Flesher opposed. And with that, I congratulate Commissioner Adams on being chosen as the Vice Chair of the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County. And I'm happy now to pass the gavel back to our chair and not to see it for a year.
There you go.
Vice Chair, any words of wisdom?
No, just I look forward to working with everybody. Thank you to my fellow commissioners, and I think it's going to be a great year. And let's get the meeting going.
We have work to do.
Next thing I would like to tell everybody is that when you come to the mic, my fellow commissioners, make sure you speak up, because sometimes I have a hard time hearing. After 35 years of riding on a fire truck, my hearing is beat to death. So if I looked at you with a gaze look sometime, that means I probably didn't understand what you said. So, thank you very much for that. All right, moving on. Any additions, deletions to the agenda or emergency items? Or anything to be pulled?
Mr. Chair, I would just like to add, under number 7, I'd like to speak briefly about the results of the local elections, that's all. Thank you.
The what?
The local elections, municipal.
Municipal election.
Anything else, commissioners? Hearing none, I need a,
Mr. Chair, move as amended.
we have a motion by Commissioner Fleischer. Do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Adams. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm saying aye. Any opposed? All right, the motion passes unanimously. We have no proclamations and presentations today, and we have no minutes with number 8. So now we will go to number 7, Commissioner Voss.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yesterday, I had the pleasure to attend both Vero Beach City Council meeting, where the new mayor was elected, new vice mayor. The new mayor is John Catuno, and the new vice mayor is Linda Moore. And yesterday evening, I had the pleasure to attend the Sebastian City Council meeting, and the new mayor is Fred Jones, who's our local favorite, visits us every meeting. And the new vice mayor is Chris Nunn. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Congratulations to them.
All right, congratulations to that group. We have new lawmakers in Indian River County, and I think it's all a positive sign. I'm looking forward to working together with all the cities and municipalities in regards to making it better. All right, we're to the consent agenda. Commissioners, anything anybody wants to change or pull from the consent agenda? Anybody from the audience wish to pull anything from the consent agenda for discussion? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair,
We have a, yes, sir.
move approval.
We have a motion by Commissioner Rogers, seconded by Commissioner Adams. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? That passes unanimously. Public hearings, we have none. And a public discussion item, we have a request to speak from Bill Rigby regarding the Community Development District due process. Mr. Rigby.
Good morning, Commissioners and Mr. Chairman. My name is Bill Rigby. I reside at 8465 59th Avenue. However, I'm here today to speak on behalf of the West Wabassa Progressive City Club. In particular, I'm here to discuss the Community Development District. I'm going to begin by saying this morning that the process of the Community Development District, by your records, it probably started before that, but I'm only going to start from February the 10th, which is 2022, when approximately 25 people met in Building B to discuss or support the Community Development District. At this time, we believe that we should have been invited as a representative from the board or a representative from the West Wabasso Progressive Club shouldn't have been at that meeting, because that is the beginning of the meeting. That's the beginning of the process. And what we consider as public, as a community, we consider this has not been proper protocol. And in that, if I've read correctly, on February 10th, a discussion regarding the application, feasibility, benefit, and effect that it will have on the Wabasso as a whole should have been discussed. But when we looked at it, let me rephrase that, when we looked at it, that was not there. And let me go back now again. Remember this now. You had the Liberty Park project. And in the Liberty Park project, now that was discussed in the Liberty Park project before they did do I think a feasibility, and in Liberty Park project also that they did newspapers and whatever they need to do, I think they did it in the Liberty Park project. I'm moving on, because I'm gonna come back to that. Now, what I would like to say this morning, again, is that I want to remind you this morning. I said this on November the 8th. I said these words. I read this out to you guys. I said, politics is a process, and who decides who's going to get what benefit out of life. Let me also remind this commission that you did make a policy on October the 22nd, and that audit was ordinance plus policy. And the ordinance was 2022-012. And in that ordinance that you made on, I think it's October the 18th, and I could be wrong, it stated that you were going to follow 190. And 190 is according to the Florida stat, because 190 covers a lot of materials in that. But the last time, I think when I read this part of it, I believe, I don't know, I believe I rattled some thoughts with this, because this is what I said. And I don't think I read it correctly, but I'm trying my best this morning to read it correctly. I said, if in effect, the normal function of representative government are being bypassed and statutory policies and appropriations are being proposed by commissioners and developers under the guise of constitutional, where these mandates impact the people without their input. Now, I went in my community and I asked about 25 people. I said, have you ever heard of the Community Development District? No one said they have heard of the Community Development District, but they did say that they heard of Lincoln Park project. Now, what I'm asking this morning is that, okay, if you have the Lincoln Park project, you have the Lincoln Park, which the ordinance that you did in 2022-012, which is October 18, which you signed. And what I'm saying this morning is that when you did that, there are different rules under that, under the Florida stat 190. Because I went back and I looked over all this material is from the Liberty Park project. And when I went back and looked over everything from the Liberty Park project, I was trying to find out what correlation that the LPD, TND have with the Community Development District. So when I looked at that, I couldn't find it. I could not. And some of you might not agree with me. I'm no attorney or whatever. I'm not that. But when I went back and looked at it, I didn't see where it correlates. But if you have some paperwork to show me that it's there, I'll be glad to accept that. I'm moving on. To the community, it appears that politics and policies does not benefit the West Wabasso community. And what we're saying is that because you have established now the Community Development District, and then you look back in here, I think the last time Mr. Brown, he stated a couple of things that the community would benefit from it. But when I go back and look in the original 14 years ago of the Lincoln Park project, what it said that it did, we're going to do some drainage for the Douglas community. It did say that we're going to do some sidewalks down to the park. It did state that. But the fundamental thing that we looked at that is that we're looking for an economic for our community. And we're saying, what economic does community development district benefit the community than for the developers? Because number one, if you go back and look at that, at the community development district, it's about funding, and it's about bonding. Who's going to bond? Who's going to bond what? And when you go back and look at it, and I could be wrong. Like I said, I'm no attorney. In my assessment, I could be more than wrong. But what I'm saying here today is that we believe that if we was at the table, all of this could have been hashed out. All of these questions, what I'm saying now, I'm not asking no questions, but I'm saying here today, all of these things could have been hashed out. We could have sat down at the table like civil people and discussed what is what. Because if you go back to the original Lincoln Park project.
So, Mr. Rigby, I've given you plenty of time to talk about this so far, but I want to reiterate something I said a couple weeks ago at our last meeting, where this really isn't the place to relitigate or rehash the approvals of either the Liberty Park PD that was approved many years ago, and it's certainly not the time to relitigate the decision of the board that was made in October to approve the LPCDD. If you've got concepts about community development districts generally, about the process by which we do them, this is your forum for that, but we're really not in a posture to relitigate what happened with regards to those two decisions.
I thank you that for Mr. Reingold, but I'm not here to relitigate anything. I'm not asking this commission to rescind anything at all. I'm only here talking about the 14th Amendment, our due process, and where it is that the community should have due process in this endeavor. I'm not here to try to litigate anything. I'm not here trying to ask the commission to rescind anything. I'm not here for that. Let's get that clear. I'm only here for the process in which it happened and what the process was and how did it happen. That is all.
Mr. Rigby, so
ahead.
can I ask, so are you trying to say that the development of the CDD, that process that we then implemented recently for the Liberty Park project, you don't feel that the community had a chance to participate in?
Not in the community development district, we did not. But
Okay,
in the
so
Liberty Park,
if,
we did.
okay.
Yes.
So we had several public workshops with community leaders that were involved, as well as members of the development community, to come up with parameters to be able to come up with parameters that a project would have to meet at the bare minimum to be part of a CDD. Did you attend, or anybody from your community attend those meetings?
No.
Okay, and how many of those did we have, Dylan? 2?
I know I conducted at least 2 public meetings in Building B.
Okay.
I know that the applicant specifically told me, Mr. Kennedy, that he had reached out during the Liberty Park zoning approval process, that he reached out to the West Waubonsee
Right.
Civic Club. And I know that he also reached out to me to let me know that he had reached out to the West Waubonsee Civic Club with regards to when the LPCDD was being approved.
So there was 2 public meetings. Prior to those 2 public meetings, there was an item on the agenda to discuss CDDs, and I know that you watch and attend our meetings often. After those 2 public workshops, there was at least one more commission meeting where we discussed what was discussed in the public workshop and decided how we wanted to move forward. Then there was a public hearing to create the CDD ordinance, correct?
Yes, there was
So,
a
at
there was
this
a public
point,
hearing on
we're at like 6 meetings to create the CDD. Then we had a whole nother public meeting to approve the CDD for Liberty Park. And I know as well that the applicant for that particular CDD reached out and attended one of your meetings to discuss the concerns that you guys had. So I apologize if you feel that you weren't afforded enough opportunity to have your voice heard in this process. But I take exception to you continuing to come here and imply that we are doing something less than above board and less than public and in the sunshine. I know that you're on the list for anything that happens in that community to be contacted about. And I can understand some of the confusion with the CDD and what it does, but as far as the economic impact to your community, a CDD allows this development to put in vital infrastructure that will benefit the community. That includes the parks, that includes the sidewalks, that includes the road changes, that includes all of those things. So this is the second week in a row. I understand if there's concerns, but I just don't see where the opportunity to have your voice heard was not afforded to you.
I'm going to say this to you, Commissioner Adams, is this. When they went in that room with the 25 people, and you saying to the audience here this morning that we was given the opportunity to be part of that meeting, I cannot recall there was nobody that we know of that was called to that meeting or any other meeting pertaining to the Community Development District. And let me say this again this morning. When the individual came to our meeting that night, his main objective was that there was no really concerns. This what was said. This is a lucrative contract, and we want to go on with it. And a lot of things that the individual was there, he said that he could not answer it, but he was get back with us at this moment in time. That has not happened. And the only thing I'm saying here this morning is that when you have transparent, it's better for everybody. And for you to say that we was well aware of the Community Development District, we were not. Do you think I'd be here this morning wasting my time and energy if I knew about the Community Development District? No, I would not. I think that I'm fair. I think that when things come up, I'm always have went to Mr. Jason Brown if there was concerns or whatever. I've always did that because I believe that if we work together, it's better for everybody.
And I don't disagree with you there. So I thank you very much. We'll make sure that we are trying to keep this much more transparent in the future. I don't know.
Mr. Rigby, I would add to you that what Commissioner Adams says is true. We've had plenty of open public forums with regards to this, whether it was with, we had all the developers and people that were interested possibly in the future in CDDs that came from like the 3 or 4 county area. And we talked about that at length. It was very, very good meetings. I've heard you here come to the meetings and talk about this. I believe this is at least the second time, if not the third time. And what I haven't heard, other than a lot of accusations and a lot of other stuff that I don't know really applies to this, I haven't heard any solutions from you or any ideas of how to correct it other than we want to sit at the table.
Let me correct you.
No, let me finish. That's what troubles me. Out of all the things I've heard you say up here, I don't know what does West Wabasso want. It doesn't necessarily fall upon the LPCDD. They're a private group. They own the land. They are able to do with the land what they want, just like we do all other developments in the county. They have a checklist they have to follow. They have regulations. They have all kinds of stuff that community development requires them to follow. What I haven't heard is what really do you want? What solutions do you want for West Wabasso? What is it you're looking for? Maybe we can do it on a different level. Maybe you ought to meet with staff and say, look, West Wabasso needs improved roads. We need street lights. We need whatever. I don't know what it is, but I haven't heard the first concrete material thing from you other than basically accusations and innuendos of what's going on. So I'm all for working together and making West Wabasso a better place, but I want us to know what really does West Wabasso want?
Well, let me say this then. What Wabasso want is fairness. But let me say this to you, because every time I come and get to that point, you guys never let me finish my speech. I don't like that, because under the First Amendment, I have a right to finish my speech. But let me say this to you this day. I'm on point. But let me say this. Out of all the taxpayers' money that Walbassett has spent in that community, why couldn't Walbassett, we've been there in that community longer than anybody in that community. Why couldn't Walbassett be a village? If Walbassett was a village, then why couldn't the community development district come be up under the village while we're there? Why? If you're saying that we're not asking for solutions or whatever, that would be one. Why couldn't we do that? To me, that once we sit at the table and discuss things, we can come up with valuable solutions to West Walbassett. We're the lowest thing on the totem pole. We don't get nothing done in
My
Walbassett.
suggestion would be to you to get with Mr. Mattson and our county administrator and sit down and hash this out. I think to bring it here, whatever solutions we're talking about is really this is not the proper forum for that, to talk about that. I think you need to get with staff, and if staff finds merit in it, then you come back to this body and we say, hey, yeah, we think that's a good idea. Let's do that. I really think that's where we need to go with this. So,
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Rigby,
Yes.
although I'm relatively new to the board, obviously I've been to these meetings a time or two. So let's talk about Liberty Park, for example. There's 4 squares, 4 corners on a piece of paper. That's a template. The developers, the county attorneys, and all the other shareholders agreed, and that has passed. Liberty Park has passed. Now, I know you're upset about it. You've done your research, and I'm pleased of that. I say a solution is to turn your attention towards Florida Statute 190. Perhaps there's something in there that could require over and additional meetings for the public and communities similar like yours. But let's remember, this thing was truly vetted all the way through, going way back to 2009. So, in other words, Liberty Park, this discussion has to end because Liberty Park is on its way. There's no stopping it now. And I appreciate your enthusiasm, but the focus should be on Florida State Statute 190. There's a lot of legislative affairs meetings in the future, and I would appreciate your input on that. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to say this and take my seat.
1 second.
Under 190.
1 second. 1 second. Jason.
Or Dylan, did you guys?
I did want to point out that the county approved a West Wabasso corridor plan in 2017 after numerous community meetings in the West Wabasso community that followed a 2000 Wabasso corridor plan. And in 2017, lots of community input. We had people from the community go and put their priorities of things they'd like to see, and there is a plan, kind of like we've done in some other areas. For instance, we have a Gifford neighborhood plan. We have a Wabasso corridor plan that was done in 2017 with various improvements that the county has been doing and continues to do based on those multiple series of meetings with the public. So I just wanted to make sure we pointed that out. That's all. Thank you.
If we can, go ahead and wrap it up for me.
Okay, I hear about the Wabasso corridor, what Mr. Brown has just mentioned. But from that, okay, you hear me now? Okay, I hear Mr. Brown speaking about the Wabasso corridor. And if you go back and check the Wabasso corridor, when we first started that, we had several meetings in churches and other places. But if you go back and look at the Wabasso corridor and what we suggested that we wanted, you'll find that pretty much none of that has happened. Like I say again, I don't come up here just to be blowing smoke. When I come up here, I speak because I did my research on this project. Now, I do know this much right here. You can stop me from speaking today, and this project can go on and on like you say it is. But I do know this now. There are rules and regulations that govern this, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's move on to 11, County Administrator's Matters. Mr. Brown.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Last year, the medical examiner for the 19th District, Dr. Aronica, came to the 4 counties that the medical examiner serves and expressed some concerns about the facility that she had. Following those meetings, the board did approve, adopted a resolution supporting funding sources for the design and construction of a new facility for District 19. The resolution directed the county administrator to work with the other 3 counties, the medical examiner, to work towards an interlocal agreement to govern the design and construction of a new facility. So what we have before you today is that agreement. We've worked with St. Lucie, Martin, Okeechobee County, and the medical examiner's office, as well as Indian River State College. As you know, that facility is currently located on Indian River State College for at least the last 4 decades. The State College has agreed to a new land lease for essentially $1 a year for 2 30-year terms, so we have a place to locate the building. The agreement lays out that St. Lucie County, being the largest county, this makes sense, as well as the county where the facility is actually located, would manage the design and construction with input from the other 3 counties. We would all have an opportunity to weigh in on the selection of the architect and engineer, which would be conducted through the CCNA process, and there are opportunities for us to weigh in on the scope and size of the building, as well as the budget for the facility once that is done. Looking at moving this forward fairly quickly because the need is fairly urgent. We have had just a very rough estimate, not based on a design or anything like that, of about $20 million for the facility. Our share of the costs, based on the number of autopsies performed in each county, is about 24%. So our cost would be about $5 million of a $20 million facility. This agreement lays all this out. The other counties have generally agreed to this. I'll note that St. Lucie County approved the agreement last week, as well as the IRSC Board of Trustees, and I believe this is on the agenda for Martin and Okeechobee County today. So with that, staff recommends that the board approve the attached interlocal agreement and authorize the chairman to sign it, and I'm available should you have any questions. Thank you.
Chairman, move approved.
Second.
I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Fleischer. Any discussion? I can tell you that serving on this committee and going through this process from the very beginning, that this is a much needed program. It's kind of a unmandated cost that we're getting from the state, that they don't chip in for it. It's our responsibility. But it's one of those things that you have to have. I mean, you have to have a medical examiner. We'd have a serious problem out there if we didn't. And not only to dispose of and help for criminal acts and cause of death and give families some peace, it's something that we need. And I can tell you that nobody's happy about it, but they all agree that it's something that we have to do. And I think it'll be a great asset to the Ford County area. It's going to be on the public safety training complex site of Indian River State College. It'll be used as a learning tool for all those students in the law enforcement and fire academy. So there's a lot of pluses, other than it's going to cost us $5 million. And I know that we will budget this and do the right thing to make this happen. So. Any comments? Any comments from the public on the motion?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for your comments. Just wanted to reiterate, it's very unfortunate that it is a state medical facility, a medical examiner's facility, and that any funding from the state had to be withdrawn. But we are all committed. I remind us that I think then Sheriff Law and myself were on the selection process for Dr. Aronica, who identified that there was a strong need, and you were on the committee for the site selection process as well. So we are committed, and I think that we have to just move forward. We'll get those funds together, and hopefully there is a little change in heart in the state with the process of distribution. That's what the glitch was, that could afford us perhaps a little reimbursement or assistance to the fund, and maybe perhaps we'll be meeting again to say that the state has come forward. We need to appeal and make it known that we need the funding, because it's $5 million, that's a lot of funds.
I know Senator Harrell and Representative Trabulsi, did I say that right? Or
Trabulsi.
are very adamant about getting some funding for this and making sure it happens. So, Jason?
And this will come up under the legislative priorities here in a few moments, too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, I have a motion by Commissioner Lohr, second by Commissioner Fleischer. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. All right, let's move on to 11B. Let's talk about the interim county administrator. This was tabled from the November 8th, 2022 meeting. Commissioners?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
We do have a challenge. It's a short-range challenge. I know that Human Resources has begun the process for the selection process for a permanent solution to this challenge. And I think it's well on its way. I see appointments or requests for discussions with us individually. But in the meantime, the operation of this fine county needs to be maintained. And, you know, one of the largest things that we look at is institutional knowledge, constructive abilities, knowledge of the logistics, the mechanism. And I could think of no greater applicant for an interim status would be the Deputy County Administrator, Michael Zito. I know that it's a temporary assignment. I know that he is familiar with the entire process here. He's had good training. He has had the experience. He's been with us or with the Sheriff's Office over 20 years. I think that we need not look any further. And that's my motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll second it with discussion.
Sure. The motion is second.
Yes, the last 4 weeks I've met with all the department heads. I've said that earlier and I'll say it again. I come from a quasi-military organization where your number 2 man is a logical choice. Simply looking at his title, Assistant County Administrator. For a civilian's perspective, you would think that that's a logical choice. He fills in when Mr. Brown's out. We've known that over the years. I think he's done a good job with that. Not saying that there's not enormous amount of talent within this county, because I've met with all of them. And I think if we look at it from a distance, the assistant county manager is the choice. So that's my second.
Any further discussion?
Yes.
Madam Vice Chairman.
Yes. So my bigger priority in this discussion is to make sure we are protecting the process by which we will be finding a permanent administrator. It's very important to me that that process remain neutral so we can attract candidates that are interested in the job. So for me, I have no problem with Mike as interim, but I'm not going to support anybody for the interim position if they are also going to be seeking the administrator position, because I feel like it gives it it gives them an unfair playing field. And for me, that administrator process is the most important process. It needs to remain neutral. So with that being said, I'm happy to support Mike as long as Mike is willing to come up here and tell me that he is not interested in the administrator's position.
That's a call to the podium. Good morning, Commissioners. Congratulations, Commissioner Lord, Commissioner Flesher. Yeah, I have no intention of applying for the permanent position, Commissioner Adams. I see my role is to prepare this county for its next leader. If something about this process changes this collegial body's perspective and they were to, in some very far-fetched scenario, approach me collectively for something more, we can discuss that down the road, but at this time, no intention of applying. My primary goal is to advance the business of this county forward in the coming months, try not to lose traction. As I often say to Jason, we're losing a very heavy lifter in addition to a leader. So our executive branch of the county is lacking some executive manpower, woman power. And so it's important that we all rise to the occasion, all hands on deck to move the county forward and prepare it for its next leader, and then orientate that leader if they're not familiar with the unique nature of this county and how it's run with great pride.
So we had a conversation yesterday where you indicated to me that you weren't interested in the position. But now today, it sounds like you're hedging your bets a little bit.
No, not at all, not at all. I mean, like I said, that scenario would have to be the five of you collectively saying, please take this job, and then I would have a decision to make. But right now, I am not applying for the job. So you will make a selection. I will orientate that candidate and then take direction from them as I have from Jason and Joe for many years.
Okay, so just for everybody in the room, it's very important to me that this person that's going to be the interim is not applying. I will not consider the interim as a candidate for the position because that position, that process needs to remain neutral. If you have somebody in that position that could possibly be the administrator, people are not going to apply. We've talked about internal candidates, other internal candidates. Those internal candidates, it is not fair to them, if there are any, because we are de facto choosing somebody over them. So again, I want to put this out there before we even start the process that I'm fine with Mike as an interim. I think he will do a fine job. I would not consider Mike as the administrator based on what he's told me today and based on what I'm pledging to the people that this process needs to remain neutral. So just want to be upfront with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, I agree with Vice Chairman Adams that I would not consider anyone who's taking the interim term for the full-time position because I think it does, it works against a level playing field. It works against it. We can't have somebody on the inside track. But otherwise, you have my full support. Interim.
I do feel the same way, and I think that I've known Mike Zito for a long time, and I think he's more than capable to do this job as interim, and it'd be a good choice. And he expressed to me yesterday that he was not interested in taking the job of the county administrator upon with the applications come out, and we choose the final candidate. So with that being said, Mike, from my standpoint, you have my full support to do this. I think you'll do a fine job. I think you'd be good for the transition to the new leader of this county, whoever that may be. It could be somebody else from internally, or it could be somebody from the outside. And I think that's one thing we need. We need a strong, boat captain to steer the boat after the other captains taking a break and going ashore. So with that being said, I have a motion by Commissioner Flesher A second by Commissioner Lord to make Mike Zito the interim county administrator. Commissioners, all those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, anybody from the public wish to comment on the motion before us? Thank you.
You know, Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I just want to add, a lot has changed in selection process and professional standards as far as selection and people responding. I could understand, and I do support, yes, if your interim is part of the global solution, there could be resistance to apply. Absolutely. So I do agree with you. But by the same token, we have had certain job vacancies that have not come any closer to reality being fulfilled. So I just wanted to remind us that, there may be 144 applicants to this process, a full gross, but there also may be none. So I wouldn't want us to put us into a position unless we all agree that, that could be revisited. If we do not find a suitable candidate, we will have to come back with another solution, because this thing can't drag out for a year. We have a definite timeline that we would want to see results happen. And if there are not enough viable candidates, we may have to revisit this. That's all. I just want to say that. I understand leaving the field wide open so that we all understand, or any applicants understand through the official process, that our interim is not considered. That's all good and fine, but I just want to remind us that we may be revisiting this due to taking a review of some of the positions that, even the position that our county administrator is filling over at the clerk of the courts, that was open for quite some time. So,
Mr. Chair,
well, remind us.
Commissioner Lord.
yes, sir, thank you. Dealing with large organizations through the years, there's something to be said about that young lady or that young man that you hire entry level. And when you sit across the table from them, you talk to them about what are their goals. And I have had many through my career point across the table and say, I want your job. That's what I want your job. So let's think about this for a minute. If we have the talent that I've discovered in the last 5 weeks, those young men and young women striving, working every day, overtime, weekends. We know plenty of examples of weekend workers. What message are we sending to them? Oh, you'll never be the county administrator. But there's got to be a glimmer for those folks that if they work hard, dedicated to our county, there's a chance they can go to the top. So let's keep that in mind as well through this process.
Right, well, I think one of our discussions at the last meeting, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Commissioners, was that we wanted internal candidates to apply along with the others, and they would be kind of put in a different pool, and they wouldn't be called out right away until you got down to the latter part of the process. So absolutely, we may find a diamond in the rough right here with us, but those people have to apply internally. The same with people that outside to have to apply. I think between inside and outside, I think we can find somebody very well to lead this county in the future. But like I told you before in the meeting, it falls upon us. That's our job to do, to find the right person. If we don't find the right person and we don't do the right things, then we as commissioners have failed in our duties to the county. So, Mr. Paladin.
Morning, Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen. Joseph Paladin. I support Mike Zito 100%. I've worked with him for over 20 years. Here's my thought process, and along with what Commissioner Lohr and Commissioner Fletcher said. If I brought you the resume of Mike Zito, without it being Mike Zito, you guys would flip out over trying to get him to be our county administrator. I mean, look at the credentials the man brings to the table. And what do we want? We wanted somebody between the greatest financial mind I've ever known, Jason Brown, and a real hard-ass county administrator, Joe Baird, who ran this county successfully for 20 years. So we want kind of a combination of those two. It don't exist. The closest you're ever going to come to that is Mike Zito. So I don't think we ought to rule him out 100%. Now, you know, Commissioner Adams made her point. I understand her point. It makes a lot of sense. But you're asking us to decide between an unknown that we don't even know who it is and somebody that's already proven himself. I think until we have that person in place, the unknown that we don't know, I think it's not fair to rule out the best qualified man for the job, in my opinion, which is Mike Zito. I mean, he's been here for over 20 years. He went through all the hard times with Joe Baird and all the time when everybody was going broke in 2007. He was a very, very big part of putting the budgets together. And he worked with Jason Brown, who's a brilliant financial person. So you got the best combination you're looking for. Jason Brown, Joe Baird. We don't have Joe Baird. We don't have Jason Brown anymore. You're looking for a combination to do the job. Now, we didn't get to this point in our county by being wrong. We're the best county in the damn state. Everybody wants to come here. Listen, I'm a developer. I have investors calling me every day. They want to be here in Indian River County. They want to be here. Yeah, everybody would like things to be easier. Everybody would like things to be simpler, to go through planning and what have you. Maybe we can correct some of those problems with the right person in place. But we're not going to give away the farm to get people to come here. We don't have to. They want to come here, they're knocking down the door. I get calls every week, every month about people wanting to come here. And I just think working with Mike Zito for the past 20 years, when he was working with Joe Baird, but tell you what, he ain't no pushover. Mike Zito ain't no pushover. He's a tough guy. But if you had your good points and it was a good project, he would listen to you and he would help you. And he never stood in my way. He never stood up there as a roadblock. And that's what we're looking. We don't want a roadblock. We want to make sure that the outside world knows that they want to come here. We want you here. You got to pay your own way. You got to do things the way we want it done here. And to bring the best person in from Ohio or Pennsylvania or Connecticut, the best person they got. If he doesn't know our local politics and our local way of doing business, he's going to be at a loss, people. I don't know how long it's going to take him to get caught up to date and know where the hell we are, or if he ever will be. Having somebody from the inside, I support that. Like Commissioner Lohr said, what message are we sending to all the people that work here very hard, saying, someday I can have that position? I've had people go to work for me, and I've always asked them, well, where do you see yourself in 5 years? What job would you like to have? Oh, Mr. Pellin, I like your job. Oh, that's not a bad thing. I like that kind of attitude. But if I tell them, you got no chance to get my job, son, forget about it. That's not really a good way of going forward. I understand what you all said, but I agree with Commissioner Lohr, and I agree with Commissioner Fletcher. And I want to tell you what, we got a really great man here. We can't let it slip by. I think we're taking something for granted because we know him. We've seen him every day for 20-some years. Mike Zito, he's just one of us. He can't be the great guy we're looking to save the county. I think you're missing the boat. I think he may be the best guy to continue the county going forward the way that Joe Baird and Jason Brown have put the county forward for the last 20 years. Nobody better than Jason Brown at what he does, and there's nobody better than Joe Baird at what he did. He's a little rough sometimes, but he got things done. That's what got us here, people. That's what got us here. I don't think we ought to rule out the fact that we ought to at least consider Mr. Zito, if he did decide to apply for the position. To rule that out, I agree so much with what Darrell Lohr said that it sends a bad message. None of you people got a chance to get into the top. Promoting from within, I think is good. I think it's a good thing for business. I think it's a good thing for attitude. It's a good thing for the future. So I don't think we ought to rule that out. Now, if we find somebody else that's better than Mike Zito, we find somebody else that's better than everybody else that we got, and he comes before us and we all agree, then we should put that person into that position. But I don't think that we ought to say that we're going to put out Mike Zito as a chance to have that position, when in my opinion right now, because all we're doing is we're talking about somebody that doesn't exist. Superman isn't here. Everybody I know, Mike Zito, he's probably the best man for the job. And I would support him for that job. Thank you for letting me speak. I appreciate it.
Anybody else want to comment? Mr. Robinson. Name and address, please.
My name's Peter Robinson. I live at 315 Great Twig Road. and I've been here for 49 years, so I've seen more people be in this position than just that. I agree with Susan 100%. If you allow Mike to say, you can apply, then you're going to get, because I talk to these guys outside of this county all the time, and they say, oh, Indian River County's different. They got an inside deal. People got inside deals going in Indian River County. And we don't need that reputation. So I think Susan was right on. Let's get everybody to apply, and then you can figure out what you want to do. And I think you'll get more than 0 that apply, but then you can figure it out and you can look at the qualities. But a guy who has a top resume, if he thinks there's an inside deal going on, he's not going to show up because somebody else wants him. You know, there's a lot of jobs in this state. So that's what we're after. We're after the top guys. We had an engineer here that was the best damn engineer we ever had years ago, okay? And Orange County stole him from us. And I used to raise holy hell about that. And they say, don't you dare come back and try and get that guy. He's the best damn engineer we ever had. So these guys are out there, and that's what you want. You want the best. And, you know, Mike's a good guy, but, you know, he can be a hell of an assistant to the best, too, if it turns out somebody else is there. I just don't want us to get that reputation. Thank you.
Anyone else? Michael?
Mr. Chairman, let me just assure the commission, there's a host of personal and professional reasons why I will not be applying that have nothing to do with the discussion on the dais today, but I appreciate everyone's confidence. I've interviewed the department heads both collectively and individually, and they are poised to carry this organization forward. Our concern is that we lack the recruitment and retention of high-level executives that are affecting the pace that we can do business at and do it right. So that's a challenge for Jason, for an interim, for the other 66 counties in the state. We're not unique in that way because it's been difficult to retain the professionals that we need to move the business forward, and it creates organizational stress. So, you know, I'm here to tell you that I will be a part of the solution. We can't afford to go too long without a leader, and we need to advance this recruitment process quickly and distill down the best leaders for you to interview and select. We need the push from another top executive. I mean, we are, you know, we wear it as a badge of honor over the years, Jason and I probably to a fault, and we're disciples of Joe. We run lean and mean, and then we wear it as a badge of honor, but it doesn't always make for the best plan, a strategic plan to move the business of the county forward. So we're going to have to focus on that. So I'd like to be a part of the solution in transitioning us into a more realistic assessment of what our needs actually are and how to, again, advance the county's business. But I have a host of reasons why, as I approach the sunset of my career, that's not a skill set that I'm going to acquire quick enough. I've again been here, but because of the way we do business, you know, we kind of relabeled the org chart. We kind of fused it into the General Services Department that was already depleted, and we ran it. We did it consciously. We saved the county a couple $100,000 a year with this method. And because Jason was so strong and independent, he would give me about 20% duties above General Services that I would handle, and I still do. Oh, by the way, very committed to that process and those advances that we've made in what I call the quality of life division. So yeah, read Larry Reisman's article. I think he did a great job in summarizing just where I am. But my goal is it's not about me, it's not about my ambition. I haven't applied for this interim position. I asked the department heads, no one raised their hand. So I feel I need to step up and assist the organization in this process. And then I think, given the quality of life here, you'll get tremendous applicants. In fact, I'm scheduled to go to the Florida Association of Counties, County Managers Association annual conference. I'll be there maybe with some of the commissioners, but the county managers have a different educational track. The theme of this year's educational track is, so you want to be a county manager, do you? So that's interesting. There are plenty of recruits there. I'll be actively working with some of the best prospects. So we can, you know, do a nationwide search, but to me, that's a target-rich environment. to bring home or to at least recruit and assist our HR department and you all with that process. So I'm here, I'm giving Commissioner Adams my personal guarantee. You find yourself upside down in 6 months, anything's possible on a Tuesday morning. But I'm here to tell you, that's my plan.
Thank you, Mike. I look forward to working with you as interim.
Okay, as long as everybody's clear on it, I think Mike has made it perfectly clear that he is not intending to apply for the job. The motion is to appoint him as interim county administrator, along with, let me finish, Bob, and I'll let you finish. That's the motion that we have. I just want to make sure that everybody's clear on the process. The motion will be for him to be interim county administrator. That's on the table. The process will still go forward, the national search through Basinger Associates to get us some applicants and go through the process. I think our first meeting is on the 5th with commissioners with the Basinger. Is that correct?
Yeah, we've set meetings with the commissioners for the consultant to interview each of you individually to see what you're looking for in that next county administrator on that date. Yes.
So we're looking forward to that. So with that, Mr. McPartland, did you want to say something?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bob McPartland, Sebastian. You know, listening to everybody speak, I understand, and Mike's great. I've worked with him for years. He'd be great in the interim. But I think, you know, listening to the commissioners speak, is that if at the end of the process and nobody else applied and then Mike has taken the position, it seems like he's being, you know, cut off at the knees if he does accept it, because it seemed like he had some strong thing. I'll go back to what I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, and I know he was upset about it, but I think Dylan Reingold stepping in as the interim to run the meetings, and Mike is here to assist him in getting everything done. And then that opens it up, because there is a lot of incredible staff that work for the county that may want to apply. And listening to the gentleman, like he said, this county works like no other county. I cover the 4 counties in the area. This one is very different, and I can say that because I live here. And people may not apply, you know? And again, I think there is somebody in this building that can take over this position. I think it's been done that way, and I think leaving Mike out of the equation, and he's here again as the assistant, thank God, to get through the process. But I think if Dylan were the interim, and again, I know he gets upset, but that's my 2 cents, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, we have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Fleischer to make Mike Zito interim county administrator while Jason's exiting, and a second by Commissioner Lohr.
Mr. Chairman? One other thing.
Commissioner Fleischer.
Thank you for the recognition. We were asking this individual who is employed by Indian River County to, by contract with the county administrator, to step up and be the interim. We're also asking him to do the very best, as he's done. He's represented us in contract negotiations. He is an attorney as well, and he has done a lot of logistics and leadership in the county, in the areas in which he's allotted to. So now we're asking him to step up to the plate. We're also telling him, okay, but we don't want you to be able to apply for the permanent position. And he's also running a contract as a deputy county administrator. During the time of that contract, I asked the attorney if we could suspend the contract and then put a reverter clause to continue it. And under the council's advice, council said that we would have to, that's a contract with the county administrator, that we could not impose that element. Do I stand corrected, Councilor?
So right now, as I envision it, it's essentially what, if the motion were to pass, Mr. Zito would become the interim county administrator, which would essentially be the equivalent of like a temporary assignment. And so that he will retain his contract and all the rights in his contract during his temporary assignment.
So his contract will, for all intents and purposes, is for another 6 months, and then 6 months we find a permanent solution to a county administrator he could be expendable.
Well, regardless of the issue, whether there's, well, if someone else becomes county administrator, whether Mr. Zito is the interim or not the interim, his contract provisions would apply either way with regards to the ability of the county administrator to hire and fire Mr. Zito.
Okay, and I did not want to negotiate before the public as far as finance. That is a matter of understanding. However, I think it's most appropriate to bring it up at this time where we're precluding any opportunity for the permanent position. We're asking him to step up to the plate, and customarily, in review of what we've done in human resources, where we've asked for somebody to have a position of supervision or the next step up, we've done 5%. And that's for a sojourn opportunity. And I'd like to include 15% to his salary as he's the interim. And if you want the time to calculate it, it's a few $1,000s. And I think that it's the most, I think it's the least we can do for consideration for what he has agreed upon to move forward and carry this county government forward as the interim county administrator.
Let me back up on this. I think we should vote on the motion of making him interim, and then we should discuss. But would that be correct? I think we should vote on the motion, the original motion to make him interim, and then we can discuss how much we're gonna pay him. I think we can make it easy, but I think that ought to be a separate discussion.
So, but we will have an opportunity.
Anybody object to that?
No, but, Mr. Chairman, we will have an opportunity to present that after we have said we all agree that he is the interim, or a majority of us agree that he's the interim county administrator. Then we're going to talk about numbers.
Right. Good with that? I have a motion by Commissioner Fleischer to make Mike Zito interim county administrator upon Jason's leaving, and a second by Commissioner Lohr. I've already asked for a comment from the public, so I'll put it up to a vote. Commissioners, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Mr. Zito, congratulations. Let's take a quick break. Let's take a 10-minute break. We'll come back at 10:28, and then we'll finish the discussion on what we want to do, and then we'll move on to legislative priorities after that. right, let's call a meeting back to order, and we'll discuss more on interim Administrator Zito. It's my, Commissioner Fleischer, I appreciate your comments. It's my thought, I don't know what you think of this, would be to just raise him to what Jason is currently getting paid, because Jason's contract doesn't expire till if he was still staying on board, it would expire till July. So we just move interim Administrator Zito over maybe a pay period earlier before Jason leaves or something like that. Mike, you need to come up, you need to be in this conversation.
Well, I'll serve at the board's pleasure. You all discuss it, and I'll.
I think we just, I would make the suggestion that we just move him up to the salary that Jason's currently making in the pay period before, sort the pay period before you leave, whenever that falls. I have no idea when that falls. So that would just be my suggestion.
Mr. Chair, yes.
Turn your mic on.
Thank you. I don't know how that went down. Mr. Chairman, my concern is that we have we're approaching Thanksgiving this week. And basically, very little gets accomplished between Thanksgiving and Christmas. There is a lot of other obligations that have to be satisfied. In addition, I think Jason is due a good week with his family before he transitions. That's now narrowing it down to about 3 weeks, if not 4, of any logistics or anything that's been happening that Mike was not exposed to, that he needs to be exposed to by Jason. And Jason has assured that he will not be vacant, so he'll be making sure that Mike is up to speed. Such being the case, with that limited amount of weeks, I agree. I mean, I thought that 15% was a fair amount of consideration by the very virtue of the fact that his contract will be negotiable by whomever the new county administrator is as well. And with that in mind, I find good favor in your recommendation. Just bring him right up to the top where he should be, since he's going to make those top key decisions and appropriately. And I think it's a very fair suggestion. It probably runs up to about 17%. And with knowing the numbers, I think that's very fair. And I should hope that Mr. Zito agrees upon that he's enhanced to a level of the high responsibility that we expect him to maintain. And I hope that my fellow commissioners also agree so we can move on to the next item.
Commissioners.
Are we going to hear from Human Resources on this at all? I mean, this is not the first time it's ever happened in the history of mankind. I'm sure that there have been occasions where someone has stepped up to act as an interim county administrator, and I'd like to hear from Human Resources on that. I don't know what anybody's salary is anyway, other than what I've read in the newspaper, and you can't believe everything you read. So,
Councilor, you have that information.
So,
Brian Gold.
through the chair to Commissioner Moss, I can tell you I've spoken with the Human Resources Director this morning. I've got a couple different things I can address with regards to that. First off, the HR Director's position, and I'm of the same boat, was essentially if there was no change in discussed by the board as Michael Zito becoming interim county administrator, essentially with a temporary assignment, it was our belief that default position would have been a 5% bump up. The Human Resources Director and myself both agreed. Anything else different from that was the will of the board. Now, with regards to the specific numbers, and I'll be happy to go through them, is Mr. Zito's current salary is at $181,777 per year. Jason Brown's current salary is at $211,871 per year. So A 15% bump brings Michael to 209 versus the 211, and then obviously meeting Jason Brown's salary would be the 211 number. So as Commissioner, I think it was Flesher said, it's roughly about 16, probably 17% at that point. But those are the numbers as they are, and I'd be happy to answer any additional questions.
I would also tell you all that we wouldn't be paying the 180 that Mike currently makes by doing this, so that money would be there. So I think we're kind of ahead of the game.
Yeah. Oh, and mine was not intended as a comment as to what the numbers should be. I was just providing the numbers as best the information.
Well, thank you. Commissioner Moss, any further?
No, thank you.
Madam Vice Chairman?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to move the interim county administrator's salary to the current county administrator's salary at this time.
Mr. Chair, I'll second it with discussion. I think Mr. Zito is displaying a lot of courage of the 20 years that we're well aware of. He stepped up and accepted it. I will second that, and with a slight modification that it become effective immediately for the reasons that Commissioner Flesher said earlier about the downtime and the meetings that we're going to be having in the next 6 weeks. And I think that's only fair for Mr. Zito, basically one of the few that stepped up to the plate to take the interim position, and I applaud him for that. So Commissioner Flesher, if I could modify that to start immediately.
I'll be happy to modify my motion, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second it.
Okay. I have a motion and a second.
Counselor has a question, sir.
Yes, sir.
I see our Human Resources Director showed up to correct anything I said that was wrong or not accurate. So if there were any other questions for the HR Director, she is here.
Let's do that now. Suzanne?
Suzanne Boyle, Human Resources Director. I'm not sure that I would have heard what you said that may have been incorrect or wrong as I was running across the parking lot. But our policy provides for a minimum of a 5% increase, and then the board could determine a higher amount if it was appropriate.
Thank you. And once again, that 5%, and then we can escalate, is for the sojourn appointment if somebody is to be bumped up to a supervisor or the next level of obligation and commitment, they would temporarily be bumped up to a minimum of 5%.
Exactly. It's called temporary assignment pay,
Yes.
interim pay, acting pay, those types of things.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you.
You are welcome.
Commissioners, any further comments?
I have no further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody from the public wish to comment on the motion before?
Good afternoon. I support the motion.
Anyone else? All right, Commissioners, we have a motion by Commissioner Fleischer to start Mr. Zito immediately at the same salary, the current salary that the county administrator currently makes, to take over upon, and also to take over upon his, when he takes, let me start over. We've already done that. We have a motion by Commissioner Fleischer to start Mr. Zito immediately at the $211,000 salary that's currently made by our current county administrator. I have a second by Commissioner Lohr. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, passes unanimously. Michael, congratulations, it's a done deal. We look forward to working with you. And I know you and Jason have a great relationship, so
We do.
we have a pretty good transition thing going on here, and I know I look forward to it, and I know the rest of us do also. So, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. All right, let's move on to 11C under County Administrator's Matters, preliminary 2023 legislative priorities. Mr. Brown.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. As one thing that that I like to do here. I'm going to delegate this item to our well and capable Legislative and Communications Manager, Kathy Copeland, for our preliminary legislative priorities for the 2023 session. So, thank you, Kathy.
Jason, and good morning. Let me, before I begin, say Happy Thanksgiving, and also express my gratitude to the staff who has helped me understand the projects that I'm going to discuss with you. And I want to give a special shout out to Jackie Means. Jackie spent an enormous amount of time with me, and I just want to let you know that the team here is, everybody works together and the camaraderie is pretty special. So, is my mic on? Is that better? Okay. So anyway, I just want to say thank you to her. Okay, I'm here to talk about process mostly. I handed out a packet to you that I'm not going to go through slide by slide. You have reviewed it, and what I want to do today is focus on some important dates, the process that we'll go through, and then present to you projects that staff has identified as priorities and have a little bit of discussion about those and then seek your guidance. So you'll notice that important dates. Today is the organizational session in Tallahassee. In November, right after Thanksgiving, will be the Florida Association of Counties Conference, where all the counties will be discussing policies that are germane to all of us. We also have new county commissioner orientation at that legislative conference, so that's a really good opportunity for you all to have conversation with other counties. At the 4-county commission meeting in December the 15th is where you all will have an opportunity to hear our neighboring counties' legislative priorities and also identify those projects that are common to all of us and collectively want to support. Then we have special sessions starting December the 12th and running through December the 16th. And then the committee meetings start in January. And so from January the 3rd to February the 24th will be where a lot of the work gets done for the legislative session. Somewhere in that time frame will also be a delegation meeting. I don't want to preempt anybody. We have spoken to folks about that, and I know that it will be probably earlier in the year to come. The regular legislative session convenes on March the 7th. So the packet that I gave to you to review is a working document. It's not going to be final until you all have a chance to take all the information that you get from those meetings and refine it. So that will come back to you prior to the legislative session. There are some guiding principles that we have been using for years, and I just want to make sure that we are all clear on those. That we will be, unless otherwise told not to, but we always want to support county home rule. You were elected to represent the citizens of Indian River County, and so it's our job to make sure that you have the right to do that. And we would oppose any preemptive legislation, any unfunded mandates, of course, and a one-size-fits-all solution. That often affects smaller counties, so that is an area that we would want to stand firm in opposition to. Our programmatic legislative priorities are similar to last year's, except that there's, I expect that there will be some emphasis on one or two of those areas. Indian River Lagoon is always a priority for the county, both the environmental health of the lagoon, but also the economic vitality. It's an important resource for this county. So we would want to support any policies and funding opportunities that enhance both of those areas. And I expect that beach renourishment will be a lively issue this year. It always is, and of course, our beaches were greatly impacted by both storms this year, and so we would propose that we focus on obviously any additional funding, but the flexibility for staff to, whatever funds are available, to use those as we see best. And then broadband support is another area where the Florida Association of Counties has had multiple policy level meetings about, and we would want to support any initiatives that support broadband internet service to rural and underserved communities. There's a lot of other priorities that are listed as additional, and I just want to pull one of those out. Most of those additional priorities are common to all counties in the state of Florida, but I do want to pull out the one that about vacation rentals, because I know that we have a lot of citizens in the county that this is near and dear to them, and I just want to make it clear that I understand the importance of this issue, and that this is something I've talked to my colleagues in other counties about, and everybody is protective of local home rule in this area, where we want to, as a county administration, have the opportunity to both propose ordinances to you and also enforce them locally instead of a statewide mandate. So now I want to move to the funding of appropriations. And I put the little puzzle graphic up there because finding money is not always a legislative fix. Sometimes it's a grant. So we would be offering to, propose a hybrid path to finding funding solutions. And those kinds of discussions would happen ahead of committee meetings and also during committee meetings with legislative staff, legislators, staff at the executive branch, getting to really understand what grant opportunities are out there and making sure that we are having the right conversations with the right people to take advantage of whatever opportunities are out there and where we think those funding opportunities will be fruitful. Staff has identified 4 priorities, one of which we have already pretty much discussed with the medical examiner facility. That is a 4-county project. So the 3 that our staff has proposed this year as priorities is the 8th Street Stormwater Treatment Storage Area, and I put this one page on there just so you would know that this is in your packet. It gives you the quick and dirty on the numbers, and then I'm going to walk you through what they are. But these are the projects that have been proposed by staff and the funding, the total project costs, and the state requested funds. So we have identified that we have a match available should we be in a position to find funding. So now I'll talk to you about the projects. The 8th Street Stormwater Treatment Storage Area is a very strong project in my opinion. I like this project because it is not only a stormwater storage facility, but it's also a treatment facility. So when we have major storm events, once this is constructed, the opportunity to pull water through a pumping station into this pond and hold it for a period of time, and not only allow the nutrients to decrease because of the aquatic vegetation, but it then allows us to put it back into the canal system and ultimately into the lagoon in a controlled measure, which, as you know, in estuarine it's a pretty delicate balance, and so the opportunity to control your discharges is advantageous. The emergency operations, and oh, by the way, this one probably is going to be a grant opportunity, but I don't want to preclude, exploring both. I think it definitely is a grant opportunity. Emergency Operations Center expansion. This is a proposed addition to the current facility, which is deemed as undersized for the growing population. This would be adding on bunkhouses and some other areas so that we would have the ability to house people overnight during a storm event. We do house people overnight now, but I will tell you that I have spent 2 hurricanes in that facility so far. And if we had to pull the number of people that we need to into that facility for a major storm event, there's not room. So I would highly recommend that. I know all of you have been over there, but I think this is probably going to be an area where other counties are raising this based on my conversations with some of my colleagues. And I think that the ability for the county to be self-sustainable during a major storm event is important. And I would argue that that is also relevant in the next project, which is the Traffic Operations Center. This building, I have not been inside it yet, but I have been all around it because we did it right before a storm. And I know that the word dilapidated might be very strong, but it is not functional to the ability that we really should be looking at. It houses very important equipment. All of the equipment that we use in conjunction with DOT roads is housed in that building and needs to be housed there. If we were to get hit by a major storm event, we would likely take down all the signals, or many of them, in the county, and they would be housed in this facility. In addition to that, we have major equipment like bucket trucks. Not all of that we would not be able to put all of that here, but we would be able to store necessary equipment that would put us in a position to efficiently and effectively be up and running following a storm. And for that reason, I think that being a partner with the Department of Transportation, that we would look for a cost share, and we need to have those conversations with that agency and with the legislature to see what opportunities might be out there for that. And then we're back to the medical examiner facility. So what I'm asking for today is for you to accept that these are legitimate priorities for the county, these projects, and that we can go ahead and start conversations. We know that as funding availability presents itself, we can have conversations about these projects and, of course, bring any information back to you. And then know that all of these revisions would come back to you prior to a legislative session start. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners, any questions of Kathy?
I think Kathy did an outstanding job, bearing in mind that she arrived here in the county, and then so did Ian. And then we got a little bit of a break, and then we got hit again. And to get out to all the facilities for assessment was a rather challenging environment, plus getting to know what we do here and how we do it and what our needs are. I'd like to suggest an addition to the legislative priorities as well, if it pleases the board, and we'll see if you would support it. We have a tremendous mental health challenge here in, not only in Indian River County, nationwide. And one of the great benefits that we have here is the mental health court. I think Judge Menz does a fine job, and if anybody's attended it, they see the interaction. I believe that tool alone reduces recidivism, reduces the pain in a community. I think mental health intervention is very much needed. Unfortunately, the funding mechanisms have dried up, deteriorated. And for a state that is touting that everything should be done for mental health intervention, I believe that we need to appeal for dollars to support the many programs that assist the mental health court and assist the citizens of Indian River County to make it a better place. Mental health challenges are not going away on their own. They need therapy, intervention, guidance, discussion, and that costs dollars by paid professionals. So I'd like to include that in one of our legislative appeals, get it on the radar, because we are going to need some funding, and the grant opportunities right now, there's a scramble for them, and they're very limited.
Commissioners.
Mr. Chair, also more of on a statewide level, we talk about the Florida retirement system, which for the record, I'm not eligible for a pension. But what's happened in 7/1 of 11 under Rick Scott and the Florida legislature, they've modified the COLAs, and the COLAs are sliding every year. And I say this on behalf of recruitment and retention, and that goes countywide for our civilians and our sworn law enforcement and firefighters. I know there's an initiative out there to somehow modify that, or perhaps even go back to 7/11. Additionally, I think our 911 operators throughout this state are low-risk retirement. Commissioner Fletcher knows, Commissioner Ehrman knows, I know. Very, very stressful job, very high turnover statewide. I would suggest that we monitor that and see if there's any traction on a high-risk retirement for those folks. Thank you.
Madam Vice Chairman.
Thank you. First, I'd just like to thank Kathy for putting this together. I think it's a great document. I look at it kind of as a living document, since we do have several meetings to attend to kind of get input. I think that 4-county meeting is going to be really cool this year, having Okeechobee County and their perspective added to the Treasure Coast. Plus, it just gives a little bit more weight for whatever regional initiatives we might want to pursue. So I'm really looking forward to that. Commissioner Lohr, I think the 911 thing, everything that you say is fantastic. When you go over to the legislative conference, I think you'll find there's a lot of people working on those, and those same issues, and we can kind of bandy together with those and help move those forward collectively, because I don't disagree with you. So, for me, I'm happy with this. I think the projects that you have included in here are fantastic. It kind of keeps us ahead of the curve. I really like the idea of building relationships with administrative agencies and trying to seek grant funding and other available pots of money outside the legislative process. As you guys know, a lot of times the legislature doesn't want to pick programs or particular projects, so they'll just throw money to a grant program, and then we need to kind of go advocate for that on a whole separate level. So I think running both tracks is going to get us further, so I appreciate that. And I just look forward to, it's going to be an interesting year in Tallahassee, so I just look forward to see what it has coming our way.
Commissioner Moss.
Thank you. I think this is a great list. Good job, and I appreciate it. One of my main concerns is beach restoration. We all saw the presentation by our county administrator that showed many photographs, and we're used to doing it over a period of time, sector by sector, year by year. And now we have what I believe is probably an unprecedented situation where we have so many sectors in need of, it's going to turn out to be funding. So that, I think, should be a high priority, because we rely on that not only for the tourism and for the tourist tax dollars, but also just for our own quality of life, to enjoy the beaches in our county. So I, again, appreciate the list you put together. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, do you need a motion, or do you want a motion on this, or are you just seeking input?
I'm going to look to Dylan for that, but I believe we just need consensus of acceptance, or?
Well, so a couple things, because I want to clarify this issue so that Kathy's got direction, is I heard Commissioner Flesher talk about incorporating some sort of aspect of mental health funding from the state in our priorities. I heard from Commissioner Lohr an aspect of Florida retirement system issues, and then also 911 operator issues. I think those are two separate issues. So the question for the board and any motion is, do you want to direct Kathy to, or the board approve the presentation or the packet as presented in it and add in these three other issues? Then the question really is to add in those three issues, do you want them to be kind of concerns toward the back that we sort of monitor, or are they more of the larger issues? And to Commissioner Moss's point, our three main legislative priorities are Indian River Lagoon, beach restoration and renourishment, and broadband internet service. So do you want either of these other issues to be that tier level or the other tier level, which is more of the concerns and monitoring? So seek direction on those issues.
So, I doesn't, if you guys want them added in, I personally have no problem with that. I think Kathy had mentioned, though, that this was a draft, so I would assume any motion that's made would be to include those and then approve the draft, because it's going to come back to us in more of a final form. Is that correct? So we're providing input.
Yeah, and what we really want is consensus. You know, we don't need to do the actual verbiage or anything like that. And the reason we do the preliminary is we're going to FAC, and this gives staff authority to to ask for and push for, say, the mental health thing or the changes to the FRS. So if there's board directive to add those items, we don't need to approve the exact verbiage, I think, but just say add these items as priorities, and then we can incorporate that in the final document that we bring back. But it gets them on the list that says, yes, our official position is we're gonna push for the FRS changes or the mental health core things. I think that'd be valuable to have before we go to FAC, and make sure that we're able to advocate for those things, and any board members that go, as well as staff. You know, you can now be speaking on behalf of the board that this is a board policy.
Okay, so what I'm hearing, a consensus would be appropriate instead of a motion?
Changes you wish to be added.
Okay. Well, I think everything that we talked about to be a consensus. Commissioner Fleischer, you good with the
Yes,
consensus?
I believe that I'd like to offer consensus, for your indulgence, for all of the items that have been discussed.
Okay. Commissioner Laura?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Yeah, we have a consensus on that. Good.
Can I just ask a question? To Dylan's point, I think just for clarification, pardon me?
Level?
Yes.
Let me ask you this. The priorities that we have, and I'm sorry, I lost my page. The priorities, there's 3 priorities right now, correct? Priority level.
Yes.
And it's beach renourishment, broadband, what was the other one? Indian River Lagoon. And we know there's legislation out there pretty much on all those things.
Those are programmatic
Right.
priorities.
The issues that Commissioner Laura and Commissioner Flesher brought up, at this point, there probably will be some type of legislation, but we're not exactly sure what it is. So my suggestion would be, at this point, to put them on the concerns level, and then once we have some legislation, we can elevate it to priority based on what that language looks like, so we can if we need to have a discussion on which way we're advocating for it, it brings it back to have that discussion and then raise it to priority if necessary.
Well, it's a growing document and direction at this point, and I do believe that there'll be more springboarding at the Fort County as well as in Tampa or St. Petersburg, and I believe that they then will become the priority if they need to be. If there is a consensus in a wider region, I believe that would be most appropriate.
I would agree with that. Everybody's good with that? Everybody's good?
Thank you.
Kathy, you good with that?
Yes, sir.
Jason, you good with that? All right. Anything else?
Well, we have to take care of this because you can't do any more touring. It's pouring out.
All right.
Office time.
We'll have to get her a canoe.
All right, let's move on to item 12, departmental matters, community development. 12A, 1, consideration of Kessel Medical Incorporated request for local jobs grant. And I see John and Helene.
Tag team effort here. Okay. Good morning. It's still morning, yes. Good morning. For the record, Helene Castletine. I'm the Economic Development Director with the Indian River County Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for taking the time to consider this application. I wanted to introduce the applicant, Kessel Medical. Jack Griffiths is the co-owner. He has a presentation he'd like to give to you as well. Kessel Medical relocated to Indian River County, actually in Vero Beach, in 2021, just a year ago. They're a medical device manufacturing company. The co-founders have decades of experience within this industry. This is a target industry, not just for Indian River County, but for the state of Florida. And this industry offers jobs that are much higher than our average wage here in Indian River County. We did an economic impact based on the earnings, just the earnings for this project. And with the new hires, about 20 new jobs at those wages, we calculated about $1.2 million in annual wages. That would be new paychecks circulating in our local economy once fully operational. Our incentives review committee, made up of primarily bankers in our chamber, we did a review of the company's Dun & Bradstreet report, found no red flags. They gave it the thumbs up. So at this point, what I would like to do is introduce you to Jack Griffiths. As I said, he is one of the co-founders of Kessel Medical, and he's got a brief presentation to show you.
Good morning. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to share with you a little bit about Kessel Medical and also for your consideration for our jobs grant application. My name is Jack Griffiths. I'm co-founder and chief technology officer at Kessel Medical. We are a recent addition here to the state of Florida, though my wife and I moved here in Vero Beach in 2015 when we found our forever home. And if you'll go to the next slide. Oh, I've got the mouse. Thank you. As was mentioned, my business partner, Don Griffin, and myself, we have a little over 6 decades experience in the medical device industry. We both started out in research and development. Together we have a little over 60 patents issued through the United States Patent and Trademark Office. I remained in research and development and also spent some time working in quality assurance and regulatory compliance. And my business partner went off and got his MBA and started working in logistics and operations. We recently exited a startup company out of Atlanta, Georgia for about $125 million. My partner basically came to me and said, what do you want to do next? And I said, well, I'd like to do something that we could bootstrap, start a business of our own, didn't rely on outside funds, and I definitely wanted to do it down here in Vero Beach, Indian River County. And he was on board with that. So luckily, he agreed to join me. Now, he's going to be relocating at the end of the school year. His eldest daughter is going to be finishing up high school at the end of the school year. In fact, she's decided to apply to Indian River State College. He's pretty excited about that. He wasn't sure she was going to go to school after high school, but that's good news for us. But if you'll go to, oh, sorry. We started out at the end of last year with about 1,100 square feet, small footprint, but medical manufacturing actually has a very large gross margin, so we didn't need a lot of space to be able to provide a lot of revenue. We were fortunate to find a space off 14th Avenue, which we did a full tear down and build out. We started out with about two part-time individuals. We're converting them to full-time starting in January of next year. It's our expectation to add an additional 6 employees next year and then 9 additional employees the year after that. We are going to be expanding into an additional 4,000 square feet by Q2 of next year. We currently have 5 customers, 5 contracts. Small medical device startup companies, mostly either in the Raleigh-Durham area, essentially through the Duke Angel Network, or out of the Georgia Research Alliance and between Georgia Tech and Emory University up in Atlanta. but we expect to expand on that. In fact, our most recent client is Smithfield Bioscience. For those of you who are familiar with Smithfield, they're the largest manufacturer of pork products in the world. Most people don't know that they're also the largest manufacturer of some pork-derived biomaterials, including heparin. So we incorporated actually in 2021, but then we converted to an S-Corp and moved down here in Florida at the end of 2021. Found our facility, completed our build-out in November of last year. We started official production operations in February of this year. In fact, we expanded our facility, added what's called an ISO 7 clean room. Basically, that's just a designation for how clean the space is. That's where we're currently manufacturing neurological implants for repair of transected nerves. Essentially, if you cut your nerve, this is a way to stitch them back together again. We started production officially yesterday, which was an exciting moment for us. But that has already started, and we will be expanding our operations. We're hoping to sign a lease by the end of by the end of next month, and then complete the build-out by Q2 of next year. Currently, we have about $250,000 worth of capital equipment in our current facility, even in that small footprint that we currently have. When we expand our operations next year, we'll be adding another $250,000 worth of capital equipment. And right now we manufacture everything from neurological implants to wearable diagnostic devices. And we also have a contract with a company in Atlanta that has a vaccine for treating peanut allergies in young adults and pediatrics. And they're operating under an NIH grant. We'll be manufacturing their kits. Does anyone have any questions?
Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Griffiths?
Well, thank you very much for your time and your consideration for our grant.
Thank you for being here. It sounds very, very interesting.
Thank you, and
much.
thank you for coming to Indian River County.
Pleasure.
Staff.
Morning. For the record, John Stoll, Chief of Long Range Planning, Indian River County. I also want to thank Helene and the Indian River County Chamber of Commerce for bringing such an exciting opportunity for high-tech jobs to the county. Today we have a jobs grant for Kessel Medical Incorporated. Oh, a little faster. Obviously, we'll skip that one. All right, so we offer financial incentives for targeted industries to locate or expand within the county. We offer $3,000 for each new position created that pays from 75% to 99.99% of average annual wage. $5,000 for each new position created that pays from 100% to 149.99% of the county's average annual wage, and $7,000 for each new position created that pays 150% or more of the county's average annual wage. For target industry classification, Kessel Medical is a medical supply manufacturing business. We qualify that under the manufacturing, warehousing, distribution target industry category. The county attorney office conducted due diligence on the company and found no significant issues. So I'll break down the proposed salary range and payment per job. We have 17 qualified jobs at $5,000 per job, 100% of the county's average annual wage for $85,000, and we have 3 qualified jobs at 150% of the county's average annual wage for $7,000 per job, $21,000, with a total grant amount of $106,000. This breaks down the date the proposed jobs will be in place. We're breaking this into 3 phases. We have 5 new employees by January 1st of 2024 for $25,000, 6 new employees for January 1st of 2025, $36,000, and 9 new employees January 1st of 2026, $45,000. These are the potential payment breakdown by fiscal year. You can see this breaks down over 5 years, starting in 24-25. I won't go into the details of that. At the Economic Development Council's regular meeting on November 15th, the Indian River County Economic Development Council voted unanimously to recommend that the Board of County Commissioners approve a local jobs grant of up to $106,000 for Kessel Medical. And staff's recommendation is that, the Economic Development Council recommend that the Board of County Commissioners approve a local job grant of up to $106,000. That concludes my presentation. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions of Mr. Stoll, Commissioner?
No, sir.
I just want to point out this is reimbursable, correct? The jobs have to be created
Absolutely.
before the payment is made.
Yes, they will submit quarterly certification.
Mr. Moss, anything?
No questions.
Sounds great.
I think this is great. This is what it's intended to do, and this is very easy, clean, not only manufacturing, but a very clean application. I think it's great. I'm seeing a smile on your face. You see something that's not much trouble here and sounds good to you. So I'm good with that. I like it. I appreciate Mr. Griffiths, y'all locating to Vero Beach in Indian River County. We wish you the best of luck. I'm no doubt in the medical field and with people like yourself with your credentials and your partner, it'll be an extreme success. And Helene, as the chamber, always thank you for doing this. So, commissioners, any further questions?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Chairman,
let's get to production. Motion to approve.
I have a motion by Commissioner Fleischer, seconded by Commissioner Adams. Anybody from the public wish to comment on this? Seeing none. Commissioners, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Mr. Griffiths. All right, moving on. Moving on to Public Works. 12G1, Florida Department of Transportation Highway Maintenance Memorandum of Agreement, MMOA, for County Road 510 85th Street. And it's number 405-606-752-01. Mr. Spierka, it's all yours.
Morning, Commissioners. Rich Berger, Public Works Director. So we have another one of these acronym type deals from DOT. This time we're talking about 510 in the North County. So last board meeting we talked about Oslo Road and we did some of these for that. Now we're talking about the first of 4 segments for the 510 project. So this first segment is 512 down to 85th Street, which is basically the main entrance off of 510 into VLE. With that, the Florida Department of Transportation requires that the local agency approve a resolution accepting the attached MMOA, outlining the conditions for acceptance and maintenance of the project after the construction is complete. So basically in a nutshell, just like the other projects, once DOT finishes the project and they turn it over to us, we go ahead and maintain it. Once the project is complete and accepted by Indian River County, the maintenance expenses of 510 to 85th Street project will be included in the Public Works Road and Bridge budget. Staff recommends the Board of County Commissioners approve the authorizing resolution for acceptance of the MMOA and authorize the chairman to sign the agreement. I'm here to answer questions.
Any question?
I just have one question. What's the time frame on the completion of this phase?
Of this phase, this will be a 24-month phase.
24? 2024, okay. If there's no other questions from the commission, I'm happy to move approval.
I have a motion by Commissioner Adams. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Fleischer. Anybody from the public wish to comment on the motion? Seeing none, Commissioners, I'll take a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it passes unanimously. Thank you, Rich. All right, next we move on to item 13, County Attorney's Matters. Mr. Reingold.
Good morning still. Pursuant to Resolution 2011-72, every year at this time, the County Attorney's Office brings a list to the board of all of those seeking to be reappointed to the various county committees and boards. Christina in my office has reached out to all the folks who were up for renewal. She has prepared a list of all those who seek to be reappointed. County Attorney's Office simply recommends that the board consider the list of reappointments and reappoint those members the board deems appropriate to be reappointed to those committees. First off, I just want to, before move on from there, I just want to thank Christina for all her help in tracking down all these folks and keeping these lists accurate. And also just want to remind Commissioner Fleischer, you've got an appointment individually for Planning and Zoning Commission. And then Commissioner Lord, you've got folks to consider for Children's Services Advisory Committee and Planning and Zoning Commissioner. Those are both individual appointments. And other than that, I'm available for questions.
Dylan, we talked yesterday about Ms. Kirkland that was just duly elected to the Mosquito Control Board. There's no conflicts determined?
So this issue actually also came up a year or two ago with regards to Bess Mitchell. The issue is that Anna Kirkland has been elected to a district board. There is a dual office holding prohibition within the Constitution of the state of Florida. It applies to county, state, and municipal boards. The Attorney General's office has opined that that does not include mosquito control districts. Susan Prado in my office also further researched the issue with regards to the Environmental Control Board, and it states that while serving, people cannot become candidates for the election to any public office for federal, state, county, and municipal government. I believe that sort of has the same sort of prohibition as the Constitution of Florida. But I do plan to reach out to Anna Kirkland just to confirm that she's okay and believes she doesn't have any issues. So I think that resolves that issue.
Commissioners, as you notice, we have a couple of beach and shore appointments, for instance, or BCC appointments when we get somebody to apply. Dylan already mentioned your appointment to Children's Services and Planning and Zoning for Commissioner Fleischer. We will have an opening on the Environmental Control Board and the Public Safety Coordinating Council. And I would tell you that I will reach out to you all as soon as I can, and we'll talk about your committee assignments and any changes that we make on that. How do we want to do this, Dylan? Do we need to approve the renewal list of people that want to be renewed? Do we need to, like, with the re-up, make a motion and vote on their terms, or how do we handle this?
Yeah, so if the board wants to make a motion, someone on the board wants to make a motion to appoint as presented, or if they want to pull someone off or the like, it's certainly the will of the board, but it would be good to have a motion at least to approve the list as presented or the list as amended based on other comments from the board.
Commissioner Moss.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I had asked our counselor for a list of how many terms the different people had served, and that was for all of these boards and committees. And the majority of them seem to be fine. Affordable Housing Advisory Committee was one where we have 2 people who've been on for more than 10 years. That's a 2-year term. And there were 2 people, one person was on for 6 terms, one person was on for 5 terms, but I know we have a problem maintaining a quorum on that one, so I think that one is fine. What I would like us to consider, the Tourist Development Council, which is a 4-year term, you have 3 members of that have been on, that have already served 3 terms, so they're on for 12 years. And I just wonder if it precludes other people from participating. You know, when you have people who are on for such a long time, that's a council or board in which I think there would be interest by others in serving on that. And in addition to that, that's also a council that involves, if you will, a fiduciary responsibility. We are the final. We're the final decision makers, but a lot of the work is done in committee, akin to the Children's Services Advisory Committee, which does a lot of financial work. And then when it comes to us, we generally take their recommendations. So I would like to consider with the Tourist Development Council to opening that up to others, and not just approving it rote.
Commissioner Adams.
The only thing I would point out regarding TDC is that there's statutory requirements about who can serve, and the people that you're referring to are statutorily required to be on that committee because they work for hotels or hotel lodging establishments, so they are directly involved in tourism. And we must have, how many, Commissioner Fleischer, on the board? The majority of that board, of the ones that are not elected representatives, must be involved in tourism. And that's what these particular people do. So I understand that you're trying to provide opportunities for other people, but I don't, because of the statutory requirements, think that this might be the appropriate board to do such.
Yeah, well, I've served on the board myself, and part of the board, for those who don't know, does turn over because it's comprised of elected officials. So the elected officials turn over But the people who are not elected, well, evidently.
Which is
evidently
probably
in
for
this
the
case-
best, because the elected officials are the ones
Yeah.
that
But I-
don't know as much.
Yes, they do have to work in tourism.
That's spurred from the board,
I'm sorry, what?
is from the hoteliers.
Yes.
And Commissioner Adams was chair there, and I have been chair there for currently the chair. And most of the discussion that is enveloped is about trends, activities, actions, and it is mostly codified by the board that serves, and they have the day-to-day operation information. So again, the selection process would be very difficult to find somebody else. We have a limited amount of hotels, so then we might say, okay, let's switch brands. Let's go from this hotel to that hotel. I understand sometimes the new broom sweeps more efficiently, or the perception is there's changing trends, but these are individuals who have been in the industry
Right.
for many years and have been dedicated not only to themselves to be financially productive, but in order to enhance the viability of our tourism here in Indian River County. And I just want to mark something. I don't know if you've watched the numbers, but we just had a TDC meeting, and the target now, as far as what has been collected, 4 cents on every bed stay, is now up to $4.5 million. It's record-shattering for a county that has no theme park, no major attractions, other than the great way of life that we find here, that people want to R&R here, and this some of the attractions. But I don't know of any other county that's doing this. So I don't want to look at a board that might just be doing the right thing. I don't know if I want to question that. Maybe another board is in order, but not that one. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I mean, and I have served, as I said, I have served on the Tourist Development Council. So I understand how it functions. And hospitality, of course, is one of our largest industries in this county. So I don't think we would have trouble finding other people who are employed in that business or who have an interest in that business, since it's one of our largest businesses. I just hope to encourage others to participate at some point. I mean, how long should, people be in place without ever changing? And 3 people on one board is, it's almost half the board, hasn't changed in, more than a decade. So I just bring it to the attention of this board that we have that kind of situation. And I think, by the way, in the future, I think that we should look at how many terms, each individual has served on each of these boards, instead of just looking at who's serving. And I'd appreciate it, if you could supply that in the future. I think that that's, it's very valid. And also, how many applications are on file for each of these boards? I mean, are there people who've been waiting for years to serve on a board, people who have an interest? Well, think about it. If the board never changes, you're discouraging anyone from applying for it in the future. It's like, well, that never changes, so I give up. Why bother? I give up. It's set. They never change anything with that. And I don't think that's a good position to take. That's all. And
I'd rather look at the fruit that the board bears, and you can't argue with the numbers that have been generated by this board and all of the partners that work in TDC. In addition, you might want to think about, I don't know if we're talking about like term limits, so that volunteer for a position, an unpaid position, be committed, do your very best, and when we feel it's necessary, we're going to zap you out.
Yeah. No, I'm not talking about term limits, but thank you anyway.
I think y'all both bring up a good. I think y'all both bring up a good point. So I think term limits might be of concern, but I have Dr. Harry Hurst that serves on the Transportation Disadvantage, has been on it for 20 plus years. and it's not like we get a lot of applications for that high-profile committee, and that seems to be the problem that we get. We don't get a lot of applications. Maybe Commissioner Moss is right. Maybe it discourages some, but overall, we don't get a tremendous amount of applications. I mean, I know I'm searching for members sometimes on certain boards, such as TD, Transportation Disadvantaged, and a few others. I have 2 on the Beach and Shore that we need to find. That's one of the more high-profile committees, and we'll go from there. So I think you both have merit, but I got to lean to Commissioner Fleischer. If it ain't broke, we don't need to fix it, right? So, absolutely. So, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As was borne out at the recent Children's Services Advisory Committee meeting on this Monday evening, they seem to have the opposite problem. The new ordinance does impose term limitations, if I'm not mistaken, Dylan, for the 2 positions.
So
I just want to clarify why I have the consensus here.
Ordinance code has stated, and it did not change with the recent update, is that the 2 at-large members have a 2-term cap, but not for anybody else.
Thank you. And so to the extent that they're filled, we've had trouble with meeting a quorum, and they wanted to consensus amongst the board that we read that limitation to begin with either the passage of the new ordinance, or like when does that term begin? Because we have trouble filling them.
Well, my assessment of it was that the 2 at-large positions didn't change with respect to the new ordinance that was adopted, so we were just carrying on forward with the folks who were already in those at-large positions. If you are struggling, Mr. Zito, with regards to those at-large positions, certainly bring it to the attention of the board, and the board can make an ordinance change to expand the limitation, but that's where we are.
And then one more question, Dylan, given the triangular structure of the CSAC, in that it has the main committee and then it has the 2 subcommittees, one being the grants review committee and the other being the needs assessment, and the difficulty in now filling those vacancies insofar as the board, in a very wise decision, has decided that they cannot double serve on those committees with the exception of the chair. They contemplated potentially merging, and I believe the CSAC committee has the authority under the ordinance to unilaterally merge those 2, but that's up for discussion as well. So while we're all here, I figured it was productive. Commissioner Moss would agree. So our next meeting is, the housekeeping is intact.
What does the board prefer, CSAC, regarding the subcommittees?
I believe they prefer to merge them so they can
Is that there?
appoint a number. I mean, if Bob's here, you're welcome
Okay.
to weigh in. I see he's not rushing to the podium, but yeah,
The
that's,
needs committee meets once a year, or is it once every 3 years? And
the assessment is required every 3 to 5, but they meet
meet, right, to make sure they're meeting the.
Yeah, but it tends to, I think it would lend itself to the same committee if we could explore that.
Actually, that reminds me of another question. Can you be elected when you're not present? Oh, we did have that question, too.
That's how,
Yeah.
that's how most people.
That's usually your punishment for not being
Right.
there.
Like Commissioner
But I-
is going to find out about it. You'll get voluntold a lot.
So,
I know it's a joke, but legally.
yeah,
Legal answer, please.
Yeah, I mean, if someone wants to nominate someone who's not there, and there's all in favor, say aye. I don't know of a legal prohibition that prevents somebody from being appointed to a position. I will note in our code, there is the Community Needs Assessment and Planning Subcommittee, and there are specific membership requirements there, and then there's a Grant Review and Program Subcommittee in the code. If it's the will of the board, we certainly can work on revising that. I just need direction from the board as to what the board wishes to do with the subcommittees.
Are their membership different? Is the required membership for each different?
So the Community Needs Assessment and Planning Subcommittee shall be comprised of no fewer than 5 and no more than 9 members. And then there are term limits with regards to that subcommittee, and then there's the grant review and program subcommittee shall be comprised of no fewer than 9 and no more than 15, and there are also term limits with regards to the subcommittees, those subcommittees. So if it's just looking for direction, I'd be happy to draft an ordinance and bring it back if that's the will of the board.
Well, I don't want to catch you off guard here, Dylan. Let's talk about it. It may be inherent in the current ordinance where the CSAC has that unilateral authority to eliminate or merge the two, but we'll see what your opinion is on that when you have a fair chance to review it.
Listed as 2 separate subcommittees in the ordinance code. I defer to the board as to how you might want to address it. Certainly, CSAC could present a recommendation to the board saying, hey, we've kind of considered the issue, and our recommendation is that they be merged, and recommend the board do what it needs to do in order to effectuate that.
Commissioners, let's it's a great conversation. I think that might be better for a December meeting to discuss. I think let's go ahead and talk about what we have before us today and vote on that, and then I have no problem bringing that back in maybe in December sometime to talk about what we need to do with the CSAC, with the interworkers, if we can give them a hand. So do you still want to say something for that?
Well, I'm just trying to think. I hear about all the board stuff. We have the same board stuff up in Sebastian, of course, you know. There's something to be said for institutional knowledge. I think one that needs to be on some of the committees is attendance really needs to be strict. And I can speak for the CSAC, is there are some that are statutorily appointed, and they don't have regular attendance at the meeting. And that kind of pulls on the quorum. And I don't know if there's something that the county commission can do, I don't know, a strong letter say, hey, you got to show up, okay? I mean, I am one of those statutorily people that is appointed, and unless an emergency happens, I'm at every meeting. But there are some that don't, and I'm not going to say any of the names, but the attendance is there. But they need to come, because we had trouble over the summer getting a quorum, and you know, I was traveling. I was in Colorado at one point. But, I mean, I think that's one of the avenues. If you have boards where somebody's appointed, they're not coming. Either you got to get somebody new or you got to go.
Dylan, I believe some of the committees do have a attendance requirement. Am I correct? I mean,
Yes.
get off
So in our code, there is a provision for absence and the removal of members of committees due to absence. I can tell you we haven't been super aggressive in prosecuting those cases to the board, but if it's the will of the board, we certainly would be happy to reach out to the folks who are staffing those committees to let the board know about those deficiencies and absences.
I think it'd be good information. I agree with you, Bob. I think it's something, if you're gonna volunteer to do it, you need to do it. You need to show up to be there. Absolutely, I agree. So commissioners, let's get back to the document at hand. The counselor said he would prefer, and I think we should, the committee member term renewal for 22-23. I think we should move on that. So I will entertain a motion.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
No, that's right. I was just going to say, Mr. Chair, move approval.
Second.
Commissioner Fleischer made a motion. Do I have a second? Commissioner Adams? I have a motion and a second. Motion by Commissioner Fleischer, second by Commissioner Adams to approve the committee renewal. Anybody in the public want to chime in on the discussion? Seeing none. Commissioners, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay, opposed.
We'll have 4-1. Commissioner Moss is dissenting. The motion passes.
And commissioners, what I will do is the list that's attached, we will put out onto our website, and then you will be looking for an agenda item on June 17th, which will be hopefully we get a bunch of really good applicants to fill those vacant spots.
In June, you said? I'm sorry. June 13th?
I'm going to do it a little bit sooner. I'm going to probably be able to handle that in January.
I meant January too. Sorry. Okay, yeah. I meant January too, so.
So you got your months wrong. I told him to find a new job earlier.
Yeah.
We're doing great today. We're doing great.
Okay. All right. The next item, we'll go to Commissioners' Matters, and we have one on the docket. 14A1 from Commissioner Lohr on County Commissioner's Administrative Assistance Assignment. Commissioner Lohr.
Well, thank you, Commissioners, and Mr. Chair particularly. The objective today is, for those of you that don't know, currently the 5 county commissioners share 3 assistants. There's a long history on how this occurred, primarily from '07 to '09 when we were in the budget crises. Mr. Brown's got a timeline I'm sure he'd be willing to share. But my objective today is for each of us to have our own assistants. Let me qualify, I do not have anyone in mind externally, internally. In fact, I prefer that, as spoken earlier today, that it be an internal candidate. I think it's an opportunity for growth. But more importantly, Commissioners, in my travels, I've asked the department heads to continue to keep up the pace, work hard. Obviously, there's situations where there's some openings that Mr. Zito's already talked about that are crucial. But my feeling is that we are commissioned. County commissioners are commissioned to do a job. With the search that's coming up, we know that we are going to have a lot on our plate. And to be quite frank with you, what I've observed over the last couple weeks is, one commissioner has an assistant, she has other jobs as well, and two of us each share an assistant. I think there could perhaps be some danger, although it hasn't happened since '09 or have ever happened that I'm familiar with. I think we would be more efficient. The commissioners could be more productive than they already have been by having one person assigned to them that we can get the research that we're going to need in the next several years and continue to compete with others throughout the state. The industry standard is that each commissioner has an assistant dedicated to themselves. I think furthermore, an assistant dedicated to each one of us would get to know that particular district better. In fact, my district and Commissioner Moss's district, we share an assistant. Two very diverse communities, I might add. And I do think that we don't need to be in a position to get ourselves embarrassed, this board or any other facet of the county, by having something get crisscrossed up and we find ourselves in a situation. So my message today is to direct staff with this board's approval to work with Human Resources as well as the budget amendment that would have to happen. In my mind, we're thinking short money here because somebody would be getting promoted and then we would fill an entry-level position somewhere in the county. Again, I think it's healthy for somebody to have their eye on the prize and continue to work and strive hard each and every day. And I do think it will make us even more efficient than we are. And I would ask your approval on this, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. I'd like to make a motion that we move forward with this. Mr. Brown may have some historical things that he would like to add, but I think it's going to make us even more effective than we currently are.
I'll second the motion for purposes of discussion.
I have a motion by Commissioner Lohr to increase the commission staff to one staff per commissioner, with a second by Commissioner Moss. It's open for discussion. Mr. Counselor.
After the discussion, I have a question on the motion.
Okay. Jason?
And my question is on the motion. What your motion is, Commissioner Lohr, is 2 additional full-time assistants, and then we would assign one of those to each commissioner, and everything else would remain the same as it is, just continue on. And then you've mentioned internal candidate. Are you thinking we should open these to internal only, or?
Yes, sir. I think internal only is healthy for this agency. I also think that the senior commissioners would have their choice initially. Commissioner Flesher and Commissioner Adams. I think that's fair.
The old guy.
The old guy over here, yeah. And unless this board wants to figure it out some other way, but I think Human Resources is more than prepared to find those internal candidates.
So I'll rephrase that, add 2 additional staff members to the board instead of one for each commissioner, even though that's what the math will do to it. So, commissioners.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Flesher.
I appreciate this being brought up, as Commissioner Law says, that states that, there's a long history. Well, I wrote the history, and at the time I felt a challenging confrontation because we all had someone to assist us that knew how we do things, when we do things, where we do things, and be able to best serve the community. But during the economic downturn, when we were taking out, I think we took out close to, Jason, 260 employees overall, and a few of them were county commissioner assistants. In addition, there was another discussion where we had moved the logistics of leadership from the commission office to have a commissioner assistance manager to, or a lead, to the county administrator's assistant. And I don't see any challenge with that. I do have some concern that it's now newfound obligation for the county administrator's assistant as far as selection process and legislation guidance. I will say that our county administrator's assistants have ridden a remarkable storm, being, again, downsized. None of the individuals that were part of the downsizing are here today. So as the group reformed as three individually, and there was some hiring challenges until we got the right people there, they are doing an awesome job in getting the greater good of the people's work being done. But I do agree with Commissioner Law that we might have some concerns of information that needs to be directed quickly. We do have people that might have to take a day off, may be sick, may have a committee to serve, and at that point, there may be but one person in that office. And I think that's, it's been a challenge during those days for them. You know, it reminds me of the old Ed Sullivan presentation with the guy spinning the plates. They have to do so many different things, and they're answering and getting things to staff. They're dealing with phone calls regarding 5 county commissioners. It's just, it is a tremendous burden. It does not happen that frequently, but it does happen. And I think now that we have recovered to some great level, and are reminded that at no time did we take any assistance from any of the directors or the managers here in the county. Yes, some of them have left or moved, but at no time did we diminish that level. And I think that it's time now to give the people of Indian River County the increased service and enhancement by having individual commissioner assistants.
I mean, I guess in full disclosure, I'm probably not the best commissioner to talk on this, since I am the commissioner that has a single assistant, although Kim does a lot of other administrative work, and I can be a mess, so it's hard to keep up with me. But I first want to say that all of our commission assistants do a fantastic job. They are super professional. They work well with the department heads, and they represent us as commissioners well. I understand the concerns that Commissioner Lohr has, but we really haven't had that issue, in my experience anyway. And again, I acknowledge that my situation is different than the other commissioners. That being said, my only concern would be, or my basic concern would be, that we would be adding 2 positions, and the cost of that would be approximately how much?
Just ballpark, I'd say about 65,000 a position for the full year, so 130,000 full year. Obviously, we're into the year a little bit, so it'd be less than that.
So we're going to be adding $100,000 to our budget mid-year. I would prefer, because I don't think it's been at a crisis point, but again, I recognize perhaps the hypocrisy of this, but I would prefer that process to align with our budget process. That way we can get the roles and responsibilities, because it's not just adding 2 positions. We also would have to realign the committee assignments and the other administrative duties that have been spread across 3 people into a fair 5-person model. So the supervisory mechanism would have to be updated. And we are going into the budget process in the spring. Usually that initially starts in March with the administrative conversation. So I think it gives us time. It gives us time to see what's out there, or see how it needs to be structured, but it also aligns the process the way that process should be aligned, coordinating with the budget process. I know there's other departments, as you guys have both mentioned today when we were talking about the interim administrator, that have been understaffed. So to me, this isn't at a crisis point. I think there's other departments that are at crisis points, and if we were going to add mid-year staffing or mid-budget year staffing, I would prefer that to go to those departments like planning or public works, where we can move things forward for the public, because I think the public is being served by us very well and by our assistants very well. So to me, it just hasn't risen to that level.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to comment on it. You know, we're looking at 2 positions, and we're identifying a cost factor. It's not a true cost factor. That's for the car dealership. Let's get to back to reality. If we're doing something internally, we're increasing inside. It's an internal promotion. There may be a staff level 3 out there that wants to be upstairs. So there may be an even amount of, well, someone comes up, someone's got to be replaced, there'll be momentum, there'll be moves, but if it's somebody else, it's only the difference between the position that's being vacated to the position that's being fulfilled. So it's not $160,000. Chime in at any time, Jason. I know we could say it's $160,000.
It would actually be the entry level.
Yeah, 120, 130 is my number, you know.
121?
In the current year, it'll be less because we're already into the
But
year.
it would, there is a possibility it's less depending upon who applies and who has to be replaced, correct? So I don't want to blanket it with, it's this amount of money. We shouldn't be running into this. It's not really identified as that cash value.
It would likely be less because if the
will
board
be
approved
less.
it today, it would be, you know, obviously we've gone through October and November and haven't filled the positions. And then if we're filling them internally, there'd be a vacancy, you know, for some time period before those other internal positions are filled. So in the current year, as I think I stated to Commissioner Adams, it'd be less than that in the current year. And that would all depend on how much time it took to fill these 2 positions and then the follow-up positions.
May prove to be very well less, and I'd be
Yeah,
happy.
it'll be less.
Bring that forward and identify it for the public to show that example of that it is far less of a mountain to climb.
Mr. Chair, there is a need for this. Maybe the other commissioners don't see this, but you know, with my assistant, there's difficulty overall just keeping up with the amount of work that's required. It's not happening. It's just not happening. So that makes me less efficient and less effective. So it's just, I don't think it's a big investment. I think you get a very good return on it. You know, we'll be more efficient going forward. I'm happy for the rest of you if it's all worked out, but it's not working right now. It's just not working. And thank you for bringing it forward.
Thank you. And Vice Chair Adams, I know you're not speaking out of school, but with, you know, having your own, you probably don't see what the others see. And I think it's a good decision to go forward. Thank you.
My thought on it is that I kind of got to lean toward Commissioner Adams said. It's not a crisis, really right now. I have no objection to it. Maybe in the coming budget year for 23, 24. I would just rather see the money spent downstairs to help Rich, to help Phil, to help Sean, to if it means one more person getting the plan through quicker through the building department, or one more person getting the plan through engineering, through public works. That's just where I'm at. But my staff assistant, who's also Commissioner Fleischer's staff assistant, Ed, is just absolutely great. And well, if this is me and you probably gonna have a fight over this in the back room somewhere.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry for your loss.
But we know how good he is, but all of them are good. Moore and Kim are just outstanding. But right now, I just think the money's better spent pushing it downstairs than it is upstairs right now. That's where I'm at. But
Mr. Chair, if I may, and I agree with you. I agree Rich needs help. There's no problem, no doubt about that. I think in my research, and I think Mr. Brown can share that there may be a possibility very soon that our friends at the federal government will be allocating $100,000. Mr. Brown, if you'd like to speak about that, and I think that would cover Rich's positions that are desperately needed, as well as satisfy my objective today. Mr. Brown?
Yeah, so what Commissioner Lohr is referring to is we did get notified by the federal government that there were some additional dollars from the American Rescue Plan Act. They're LATCF, and I can't remember what that stands for right now, but they said, hey, here's $100,000 for each county. You just have to tell us how you're going to spend it. We were planning to bring something back on December 6th, and Rich might be getting excited, but we had talked to community development about a priority position for processing development there, and so we're planning to bring something back to recommend funding a position this current year with that $100,000, which would obviously have to be, it's one-time money. It will have to be funded in next year's budget as well. So we are looking at trying to bring a separate position back, geared towards the development review process and having more positions there to help process that backlog.
I understand that. Basically, my position is what Jason said. I think, again, not to be redundant, but I think I'd like to see the money spent downstairs. I have been bugging Jason for the last 6 months to get us another code enforcement officer just to deal with vacation rentals alone. We have over almost 400 vacation rentals in the county, and I believe that's right. And we're charged by the state from another unfunded mandate to regulate those. And one thing I found, and I'm sure my three of us will disagree, and you'll find out real soon how busy code enforcement really is around here. And that's, that also brings revenue back in for us with that. But it's the pleasure of the board what we want to do. That's just my stand. I'm not against it, but I think we could spend the money right now elsewhere. It would probably be better spent. I feel that I'm pretty efficient. I'm sure Commissioner Fleischer feels the same way with the system that we have. I understand the argument, but I just, again, not to repeat myself, but I think it'd be better spent downstairs on some other folks that can be out there in the field doing the good work that we all do. But we have a motion on the floor. By Commissioner Lohr, second by Commissioner Moss, to add 2 additional staff members to the Board of County Commissioners office. Anybody from the public wish to comment on the motion? Seeing none. Commissioners, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Nay. It passes 3-2.
Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome.
And to the chair, just to follow up on that discussion, I heard we're going to be opening that up internally for posting, and then I heard something about senior commissioners sort of discretion. One other point I want to make about this is it the board's will to make this a regular employee, or is this going to be an at-will employee? And so I just want to seek direction.
Jason, how do we currently do it? Tina's currently in charge of those folks?
So the way it is now is the code has designated the supervision of this to the county administrator's office, which before my time, that was happily, delegated to the executive assistant to the county administrator, Dory at the time, and now that is transitioned to Tina. So that is the way we have managed it. Those positions, like all other county positions, with the exception of Dylan and I and a couple of other people that report directly to us, are all property rights folks. There's only a handful of at-will folks, so the current folks have property rights just like the other frontline employees, unless you tell us otherwise. That's the way we would continue with that. But clearly would be your policy decision to make that.
I see no reason to change that, and I see no reason to have the county administrator's office still be in charge of that. Commissioner Fleischer?
Well, I've worked with both systems,
Right.
and most certainly the at-will employee is working. When you have 5, it was made more sense for the at-will employee, okay? Because that person worked directly for you, answered to no other individual, but when we remove the lead, that's when we wound up in a dilemma, and that's when it got changed to employment rights being shifted, because we had, as Jason said, because then we had to go to the county administrator's assistant to be a lead. I don't necessarily know if there is the burden of the lead. The current commission assistants work very well together. Very well together. They substitute each other. They work. As a matter of fact, I think Kim works 2 committees that I'm on. So again, I heard realignment earlier. That's just another aspect where a different commissioner assistant is working on a different committee for a different commissioner. I think that kind of like settles down. If there are 5, then that won't be happening, and then people will be working for their commissioner, which then begs the question of how efficient was that at-will employment? Well, it's kind of disingenuous to the current commissioner assistants because they have employment rights. And then now 2 others come in and they are at will. So if they're at will, then are we the same? Okay? I could be gone tomorrow. They're stuck with you. They have to have progressive discipline, and we have to do the whole scenario to say bye-bye. And I didn't mean that in any way. It's just that's the concern. Now you have an inequality. So I don't necessarily know if that's the way to go, because then if they're at will, then the commissioners will have to do the hiring. Correct, Jason? If they're at will, that historically, the commissioners will do the interviews. I know when I had to do interviews and I had to do 40 people to get down to 8 to 5 to 1, it took a tremendous amount of time to do that. So having the ability to have HR select applicants or interview applicants, and perhaps have a hybrid of the commissioners being able to be exposed to that, whether it's that direct commissioner or all of us, that's a possibility. But I think it should be left where it's at, not at will, because at will may cause other dissension between the individuals that are working different committees. And again, here today, gone tomorrow, and then, well, you're protected, it's almost like, well, you're in the union, you're not in the union. So I think we'll run into that dichotomy of pain if we go into that element. You asked me to comment, I did. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, thank you. And yes, certainly that should be a regular employee. We don't want to bifurcate the system, having at will versus regular. So again, I think it's healthy for the county to promote within, and I know that Human Resources can tackle that, and we'll move forward. Thank you.
Further comments? Jason?
And just clarification, I want to make sure I understand. So we're hiring the 2 additional full-time employees. They're going to continue to have property rights like the current commissioner assistants do. Management will stay with the county administrator's office, which is currently delegated to my executive assistant. And you've requested internal candidates only. Do you want to let us, if we don't end up with 2 satisfactory fits with an internal posting, are we allowed to go outside if we don't end up with a fit? I mean, I figure we likely will end up with a fit inside. So that's one question. And then just the senior commissioners, I'll tell you, that's a little different than what we've done in the past. In the past, it's been up to Tina, or before her, Dory, to assign those, but I'm hearing the direction is to give the commissioner who's most senior the choice for the existing assistants. So I just want to make clarity on that.
I would, this would be my suggestion was, if you don't find we'll go to that bridge when we get there with reference to internal applicants. If you don't get internal applicants, then you would come back and say, hey, we didn't get any internal applicants, what do we need to do? That's where I would start on that.
Okay.
As for senior, I would say if it's a consensus of the board to do that, that would be the consensus of the board. You know, I'm going to say I would use chairman's preference.
Oh, you are the chair, Mr. Chair.
But you know, I think maybe it's commissioners, we can work that out ourselves. I think. I don't know if y'all have an objection to that. Do we want to agree to just kind of work it out as we want?
I'm the junior man, so.
Why don't we
we can manage that.
We'll work it out.
I think we could work that out.
We'll play rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah.
You good with that? Come on, you're in your 5th term. Make a decision here. You good with that? See, it's already starting.
You said what?
I'll choose
Okay.
him.
All right, thank you. Again, I didn't know if I told you it's 3-2. Commissioner Adams and I were the dissenting vote on
Hey,
that.
don't make a move.
By the way. Next, let's go to special district and boards. Solid Waste Disposal District, 15B1, request for general funds, PACE project, and other community projects. And it's my man from the landfill.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Himanshu Shumetha, Managing Director of the Solid Waste Disposal District. Welcome, Commissioner Lohr. Congratulations, Commissioner Flesher.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
And I know it's pretty loud in here, but over the years, we have been basically working with the Health Department on sort of, I think Commissioner Lohr can probably say that, you know, when there are old demolished or old homes that have been abandoned in certain communities throughout our county, that the most efficient thing to do is to go ahead and demolish them. And so we worked with the Health Department. Basically, this agenda item allows the landfill, we don't waive any fees, so it allows the landfill to accept, you know, materials from the Health Department on projects that they've designated for demolitions, to go ahead and the landfill to cover the fees through the general fund. And so they've requested an allocation of $6,000 a year. We also have an agreement with Indian River Farms Control District, about $2,000 a year that we allocate for when they clean up canals where there's illegal dumping going on in canals. When they pick up some of that material and bring it in, we don't charge them for that. We cover that through the general funds. And from time to time, there's other illegal dumping that occurs that a lot of community groups will get involved with to
sort of work together to clean up their communities. And so when some of that material comes in, we also cover the funds for disposal through the general fund. So that's the purpose of this agenda item, and happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to move approval.
I have a motion by Commissioner Adams. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Lohr. Anybody wish to comment on the motion before us? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. 15B2, work order number 18 to Geosyntec for Segment 3, Cell 3, site preparations.
Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to move approval.
Have a motion by Commissioner Adams. Do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Fleischer. Anybody in the audience wish to comment on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Same sign. Hearing none, it passes unanimously. All right, Commissioners, good job. Again, I thank you for your vote of confidence in making me your chairman, and I know that I'll give it my best shot and do the hardest job that I can to make it successful as a group. And I'm very proud to have Commissioner Adams as the vice chair. She can keep me straight, and if I happen to be absent, I know she'll do a fine job as that. So I appreciate that. With that being said, we have no further business. I missed it by half an hour, Commish. So with that being said, this meeting for today is adjourned.
Everybody have a happy Thanksgiving.